righty, boys and girls, gents, friends, all of the in-between. Welcome back. I forgot how to turn this off. Welcome back to Talking Jets with Tigo. My name is Tigo, and today we're going to be talking about free agency. There's been a lot of conversation in recent days about these veteran signings and things like that. And we're seeing these tweets and a bunch of different things going on with the young guys that are on the roster. And the biggest thing that we need to remember when it comes to this free agency period is that the New York Jets are in win now mode. And every job is up for grabs. Every single one of them. The New York Jets aren't scared to bring in competition, and these young guns can't be scared to compete for their jobs. No job is guaranteed in the NFL. The NFL does not stand for the National Football League. The NFL stands for not for long. Remember that the average NFL career is only 3.5 years long. And when we start looking at the guys that we have on the roster and the positions that we have and that we need, the real thing to take into consideration is that while the New York Jets may be really high, or the fan base may be really high on certain players, the organization might not feel the same way. And that's just the reality of the situation. We saw that with Elijah Moore. I was one of those people that was so totally all in on Elijah Moore. And then he got traded to Cleveland. And then the reports came out that the staff didn't believe in him. And while I totally think that Elijah Moore is going to go to Cleveland and light it up, this staff very clearly didn't. Another example of that is the safety room. This fan base is so totally all in on going and getting a safety. I don't know if this staff is. This staff tends to feel like they believe in the guys that we have in the room. I don't know if we're going to add another piece to this safety room. I don't even know if we're going to get rid of Jordan Whitehead, if we're being honest. This running back room, a lot of people are looking at this running back room and saying like, yeah, no, we're fine. But we're not fine. Breece Hall is injured, and instead of rushing him back, which we saw with people with the same exact injury, look at what happened when Christian McCaffrey got rushed back. Look at what happened when Saquon Barkley got rushed back. Look at what happened when J.K. Dobbins got rushed back. Sitting Breece and ultimately, I think, putting him on IR early is the best way to go. And now the only running backs that we have on the roster are Michael Carter, Bam Knight, and now Ty Johnson. If we look at the wide receiver room, while Garrett Wilson is wide receiver one and he has that ceiling, the players behind Garrett Wilson at this point aren't that great. There are a lot of things that this team and a lot of positions that this team can definitely add depth to, and I think that's the key word, is depth. Let's remember what Joe Douglas said last year at the owners' meeting when there was conversations about the New York Jets possibly taking an offensive tackle at 4. Thank you, Ken Mineo, for subscribing, but before I finish my intro monologue, remember that a position of strength is one injury away from being a position of need. Having more guys on the roster is always better than not having enough. If worst case scenario, things hit the fan. Let's say hi to some people in the chat and let's get going. Dakota J was in the chat like 30 seconds after I scheduled the live stream. Love it. Thank you guys for stopping by. T. Rivera, what up? Jesse P, what's up? New York Jets super fan in the house. John Nolte with the first question coming in hot. John, I'm going to come back to this, and I'll answer it. Give me a second. Ha ha ha. There it is. Nolte, next message you send, or actually hit the refresh, Nolte, and then send a message. You'll see something new. But I'll come back to this because I actually do want to answer this question because this is a very, very nice question. Jesse P, let's go. Absolutely. Aurora, ready to talk some Jets. Abby Fresh, good evening, everyone. Sorry I'm late. Abby, you showed up right on time. We start 9:30 on Fridays. We do the intro monologue, and then we hop right in to the chat. Let's say hi to some more people. Joan Sicko, Quinnen's contract wouldn't affect the cap till next year. That is a possibility, absolutely. Okay, that's one off the list. Abby Fresh, please don't sign OBJ to the Jets. We're going to talk about that today. As you can see in the title, we're going to talk about all these free agents. JD doesn't place high value on safeties. Absolutely. Brees, if healthy, is like another receiver. Absolutely as well. Jets mess. Yo, what's up, man? And boom. Oh, it doesn't show up here. But you've got a wrench now, Nalty. Let's go back to your question because I think this is a very, very interesting question. And one that we can absolutely discuss at a high level. And here's the situation that that we've got to talk about is that the New York Jets have not done everything that they can yet when it comes to freeing up cap space for players. We have to remember that when it comes to the contracts that are on the Jets, we still have a ton of moves that the New York Jets can still do to bring in and free up a ton of space, including the restructuring and or extending of CJ Mosley, which would free up $11 million. And I think that that's something that this team is going to end up doing. I think why it hasn't been done yet is because I think the conversation is around an extension. I think we're trying to look at CJ Mosley and his current contract, which has the 2 void years on the back half in 2025 and 2026, and turning those void years into real years so that we can extend him. I would like to see CJ Mosley retire as a New York Jet. I think that there's a lot of incentive there, but not at $21 million this year and next year. And I think he knows that he's not worthy of that $21 million. The Jets know that he's not worth that $21 million. And I think that when you come together, you'll ultimately end up having an extension, keeping him in the building till he's 34, 35, and lowering his cap number from $21 million down to a $10 or $11 million would save the Jets a ton of money. Let's also remember that we can, if we wanted to, restructure Dwayne Brown's contract and save $6 million on the cap and push some of that dead cap hit money, or push some of that cap hit money into next year where we won't have Dwayne Brown, obviously, into next year, but he has void years on the back half of his contract that we can still use to maneuver the salary cap. Remember that Corey Davis is not going to be on this roster. I think that, 100%. So there's $10.5 million that you can save. William Sprague, thank you so much for hitting the subscribe button. And so there are a lot of these types of contracts that are out there that we can restructure. The same thing can be said about Jordan Whitehead. If we cut Jordan Whitehead, there is $7.5 million that we said, and a big chunk of the fan base wants to do that. And remember that you can also manipulate the cap, Nalty. Remember that. Go look at, if you want to see an example of this, I'm going to pull it up just so that people can realize how fake the cap is when you look at it. Derek Carr just signed with the New Orleans Saints. Obviously, we all know that because he was in talks to coming with the Jets possibly. And then we look at his contract. Do you know what his cap hit is in his first year as a New Orleans Saint? $7 million. They gave him a massive deal that's worth, I believe, 35 a year. His first year's cap hit is $7 million. Remember that the cap hit doesn't go and work like in other sports where it's the average annual value split up amongst all those years, which I think is how it should be. But you can manipulate the cap. We can still pay Quinnen Williams. And here's the real thing. If we extend Quinnen Williams and put the cap hit in the third and in the fourth year, the massive cap hits in the third and the fourth year, remember that in 2024, the salary cap is going to explode because of the new TV deals. And so let's say we bring in Quinnen Williams and we extend him to the number that we all think he's going to get. Let's say $100 million or $110 million over 4 years. right? If we do some quick maths, I'm not that good at maths in my head. I'm good at big maths number. If we divide that over 4, that is $27.5 million per year, which is where I think he's going to be. If we make him like a $10 million cap hit in the first year, and on the back half of the years, we go like, okay, he's like a $30 million cap hit, we'll be fine because the salary cap is going to explode. So remember, there's a lot of salary cap shenaniganery that the New York Jets can do. And by simply doing moves and making moves that we all expect this team to make, the New York Jets can free up $39 million of cap hit. And that's with me keeping Carl Lawson. If we were to cut or trade Carl Lawson, we can create $54 million of cap this year. There is a bunch of things that we can do still and a bunch of ways that we can do it, but there's no point in doing them preemptively. We should wait until we need to. So there goes that question. Chat is already going off. Guys, before we hop into the chat really quickly, one of the things that you're going to notice is right up here is this new tracker. This is a tracker for the Talking Jets with Tigo membership page. It's the Tigo Navy. I was in the Navy, so I thought it'd be a cool name. And when we get to 15 members, we're going to be doing a giveaway. Just a little bit of an incentive. We're going to be ramping these giveaways and these things up, where if we get a certain membership point, we're going to start doing members-only streams, a couple of things that maybe might be embarrassing for Talking Jets with Tigo to do, and a bunch of different things that we're going to be doing. But it is a way to help support the channel. It is not necessary at all. It's the last time I'm going to bring it up, but boom. Tigo Navy giveaway. If you want to be a part of that, down below, there's a little join button. It costs less than a cup of coffee a month to do it. There's that. Done pitching. Let's go for Vane in the house. What's good? OBJ, sheesh, I'm torn on that one. Me too. The real thing with the OBJ thing is going to come down to contract. I don't want to sign him to, honestly, I don't want to sign him to more money than McCole Hardman made or is going to make, right? That's a real thing that when I look at it and I go, McCole Hardman's contract, and Nalty, going back to my thing, Alan Lazard's cap number this year is $3 million. The cap isn't real, guys. You can do whatever you want with the cap. Back to what I was saying, I wouldn't want him making more money than a McCole Hardman. What was McCole's deal? $5-ish million. Jesse P, thank you so much for becoming the first member of the channel. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Very, like I said, I can't keep saying thank you, but thank you. That's insane. I love it. I love it. But back to what I was saying. If we look at an OBJ deal, I would have to make it insanely, and I'm talking about insanely incentive laden. I'm talking crazy, a base salary of $3 million, $4 million. None of it is guaranteed. And I'm saying none of it is guaranteed. And then you put up to $4 million in incentives when it comes to playtime or availability. Don't put anything on yards or touchdowns, because then you can maybe instigate some diva stuff there. But make it availability. Make it injury stuff. Make it those kinds of conversation. Then I'd be more interested in it. But if you're talking $8 million to straight up, nah, no way. He looked really good in the workout, but coming off of 2 ACLs off of the same leg, it's just a risk, and that's a risk I'm not willing to take for big money. But if you're telling me that he can come in on a deal that's $4-5 million, 1-year deal, prove it deal, no, nothing beyond that, $4 million with a bunch of incentives, I'd be on board for that. I would do that in a heartbeat. But that's just me. I think OBJ still has a ton to offer when it comes to his skill set and his athleticism, being on a team, but not as a wide receiver 1, let alone a wide receiver 2. I would love to see him as a wide receiver 3, red zone option, those kinds of things. But that's me. Mosley is still valuable, but not that valuable. Absolutely. John, you're totally right. He is a valuable asset to this team, not at $21 million. Rico the pup, always love talking to Rico. Maybe go into why void years matter. I'm assuming it's the ability to prorate the contract so you can expense it past the time the player is released instead of one huge hit. So here's the thing, Rico. What void years do, it has nothing to do with salary or anything like that, and has everything to do with the signing bonus. Remember that any part of the salary that is given to a player as a prorated bonus or a signing bonus or anything like that gets divided by the full numbers of the the total number of years for the contract. So Rico, let's say I give you a $10 million contract to be a long snapper for the New York Jets, and it is a 2-year deal to make the math really, really simple. And I give you a base salary of $2.5 million in the first year and in the second year. So that's $5 million. You get $5 million if you're 2.5 the first year, 2.5 the second year. The rest of the $5 million is your signing bonus. That gets prorated over the entire part of the deal. Now, that doesn't mean that every year you get on signing day a bonus. No, you can get your entire money up front, but it gets prorated over all the years. Now, let's say, Rico, $5 million for a long snapper is a lot of money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 void years on the back half of your contract. Let's say 3 void years on the back half of your contract, so that even though, let's say, I'm going to give you the $5 million in year 1 as the signing bonus, that's what's going to happen. How that breaks down is your actual salary cap hit number will be the $2.5 million of base salary plus a $1 million bonus, because it's going to break down over the entire 5 years. And the back 3 years are what's called these void years. They're not real years because your contract will have an automatic out at the end of your time with the New York Jets, and those years, like void years, become invalid. But what we will do is we will carry a $1 million cap hit for you as a player those 3 void years, if that's how it works out. You can work around those numbers. A great example of that is CJ Mosley's current contract. We have, you would have those dead cap hits. So that's how the void years work. It's a way to manipulate the signing bonus. That's why when you see certain players getting their salary restructured, they get their salary restructured and then turned into void years, adding the back half of it. Remember that's what we did with CJ Mosley last year. We restructured his contract last year so that he was a $5 million cap hit, and then we added 2 void years on the back end so that we could spread out that prorated bonus across those back 2 years. And there you go. I hope that answers your question there. Speaking of Bo Jackson, you guys hear his nephew ran a 4.25 at Auburn's pro day. He's a 6'2", 220 receiver. Damn. That's insane. I didn't know that was a thing. Oh my gosh, so many. Let me see. Give Whitehead a chance. He was in a whole new system last year. He was. I'm not anti Jordan Whitehead. I like Jordan Whitehead on this team. That cap hit is what I think I have a little bit of a problem with. What I would do is, if I'm Joe Douglas, is I would extend him for another year so that I could spread out his cap hit and lower it from that $8 or $9 million cap hit that he is now down to a $5 or $6 million cap hit, and say, you know what, that's awesome. And you have him till next year. And then I would use some of that money that you saved to pay Chuck Clark, because I would like to keep Chuck Clark on this team long term. He's still only 27 years old, and he still has a ton in the tank, in my opinion. And the way that I would do the Jordan Whitehead deal is that second year, none of it is guaranteed at all, so that if he doesn't step up his game, you can move on from him. Still, that's how I would do it. I would want to see that pair working together, even though they're more statistically both box safeties. When we look at Jordan Whitehead in coverage last year, statistically, he wasn't that bad. The real problem with Jordan Whitehead was his tackling. I saw that in the comments earlier. And so when you look at the tackling problem. Chuck Clark is a much better tackler. Maybe you can look at moving Whitehead into a more free safety role and using him more in coverage. An area where, yes, he was still a liability last year, but not a massive one. And he definitely, when he played free safety last year, was better than what we got out of LaMarcus Joyner. And so I would maybe do that, maybe convert him from a strong safety into a free safety and see how that works. OBJ, 1 year cheap, prove it deal. Absolutely. What's up, Fish Alaska? Hey, all, it's a good day to be a Jets fan. Absolutely. Zoe Royalty, OBJ is an aging receiver with 2 knee injuries, hard pass. Yeah, I get that. I totally understand that too. Just draft Jonathan Mingo, the Ole Miss wide receiver, strong and fast in the 4th round, or bring in Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is a 1st round pick. He's not going to be available when we want to be taking a wide receiver, in my opinion. I would love to take a flyer on a guy in the 5th or the 6th round, but ultimately, like, the reality is I'm starting to get on board with a D-Hop trade or a OBJ signing just because, like, we've got a lot of young guys on the roster, and I want, yes, someone who's past their prime, like, for sure, but I would feel a lot more comfortable with a guy who was, at one point in time, the best receiver in the NFL, and, like, OBJ had that title when he was a Giant. DeAndre Hopkins had that title when he was in Houston. Like, yes, they're very long past those days, but it's still one of those things where I would go, you know what? I would still do it. And here's the thing. Medical science has gotten way better. Like, the surgeries and all that stuff, they're not as bad. You can recover from those things and be, like, the reason I'm not so scared about OBJ is that workout video. He was pumping hard. His legs were hitting the ground like the ground was dating his sister, and he didn't like him. And he was like it was crazy how hard he was running. He looked incredibly fit. So, yeah, there's my thing. That's how I look at it. Barney Miller, what's going on, man? Welcome. Love seeing that. I kind of hate the cap stuff, so complicated. It's one of the things that I'm trying to understand more and more. I feel like if you can be a salary cap expert, massive air quotes, it can really help you, one, with your channel, because a lot of people are going to come to you for, like, questions and stuff, but also, like, it can really help you truly understand the capabilities and the functionality of what your team can do, as if you understand what's going on. So for me, I want to learn the salary cap, one, because I'm going to school for computer science and I'm getting a minor in math. I enjoy the math. But, yeah, there's that. $10 million to be a long snapper? Yeah, bro, there you go. Even though we've got one of the best in the game. I take Ben Jones before OBJ. Let's talk about Ben Jones. Ben Jones is still out there, and he's still available. I think Ben Jones doesn't sign with a team until after the draft, and I don't think he should, because he's not going to get anything beyond a 1-year deal because of all the concussions and stuff. And Ben Jones, while is a really good center, isn't good enough for you to pass up on a center. So, like, let's say we do trade back from 13 to 20. I think the Chargers might want to come up for a wide receiver, and they might want to get in front of New England to get a wide receiver. Now, let's say all of those things end up being true. At 20, I would take John Michael Schmitz. Every day of the week, I would take John Michael Schmitz. Like, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would take him. And I would start John Michael Schmitz over Ben Jones. So I think Ben Jones is really just going to kind of hang out, wait till the draft happens, because I think he wants to go to a situation where he's going to start and not just be on a team that he's going to get carried to a ring, but be on a team where he's going to contribute to getting a ring. So I love me some Ben Jones. But yeah, let's keep going here. Let's see if I missed anything. Jones, Seco, absolutely. The Jets did in the past. This was the Jets tax, right? It's one of those things that was very common that we talked about all the time. It's one of those things where I look at it and I go, a great example is the CJ Mosley contract. That was a Jets tax. We had to make him the highest paid linebacker in football to want to come to the New York Jets. Now we don't have to do that anymore. Now players are probably going to take cheaper deals or wait around to come to the New York Jets. I think Calais Campbell is going to be a New York Jet. I released a video right before the live stream. If you haven't seen it, when you finish the live stream, go watch it. But I talk about Calais Campbell, and I said he might wait to make his decision until after the draft. Same kind of reasons why Ben Jones would. But the other thing is, like, I haven't looked at his career entirely, like when he was in Jacksonville and when he was in Arizona and when he was in Baltimore and all of those things, to see who his running mates were up the middle. But I think if you put him on the Jets, he's by far and away the best teammate up the middle, not on the edge, but up the middle that he'll ever have. Ever. At any point in time. And so, like, would you not take, in a situation where Aaron Rodgers is on the other side of the football, so you know your offense is going to be handled really, really well. Robert Saleh, who's well-liked amongst all of the players as a defensive head coach, who, with a team that just had the defensive rookie of the year in Sauce Gardner, the best cornerback trio in the NFL, hands down, and has a pretty lethal pass rush that includes Quinnen Williams, who's probably going to be the best teammate you've ever had on the interior of the defensive line. There's a lot of benefit there. So, there you go. Love it. Jimmy from Seattle, can we stop with the OBJ stance of the surgeries and recognize his talent and work ethic will be great for the team? Absolutely. But with that comes a concern of there are some immaturity issues, right? The plane video wasn't that long ago. You know, you have to think of those things when going on. And the people that you surround yourself with do have a tendency. Look at what happened with Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore has all of the talent in the world. But the guys that he's hanging around with who are infinitely better than him at his position, guys like A.J. Brown and, you know, Debo and those kinds of guys who are like, those are top 5 wide receivers in the NFL. It's one of those things where it's just like that tends to poison your mind. And I want to keep Garrett Wilson here for a long, long time. I'm not sitting here saying that he's not worth the risk, but to take away the fact that he did have 2 injuries is you can't not talk about that. It's a conversation you got to have. But I totally agree. I'm on board with OBJ. D-Hop edges out OBJ in both performance and locker room presence. I don't know about that. Performance, I'll give you, but locker room presence, didn't he just get suspended for doing the steroids? For putting the horse tranquilizers in his leg or something like that? Or was it bad fish? What was his excuse? Yeah. So, there you go. Jordan Victor, please talk about Michael Carter. Some Jets fans are disgusted with him. I'm not at a point where I'm going to sit here and say that I'm disgusted with him, Jordan, but I am disappointed in him. I think the thing that really ultimately happened, and this was a mistake on the Jets' part, was that we used him as a running back 1 in his rookie year, and he had a relatively good year. The real thing is that Michael Carter has never been a running back 1 in his professional career, and I'm including college as a professional career. Ever. He was a running mate to the guy who's in Denver. I can't remember his name if chat wants to help me out with that. But he ran behind him at North Carolina. When he came to the New York Jets, yes, he had a solid year, but he got hurt, and it didn't stop the New York Jets from going out and drafting Breece Hall. When we started the year, we gave Michael Carter the opportunity to keep his job, and he failed to do so, and he lost it to Breece Hall. And Javonte Williams, thank you, Jimmy from Seattle. When I look at it, I go, he's a running back too. And here's a take. I think Leger said it. It was one of the old Jets guys that's on TV that I follow. It was either Leger or I don't remember who it was. I think it was Leger. But he said, the reality is that Michael Carter might not be on this team next year. Like, that's real. If he doesn't turn it around at all, like, we can just kind of move on from him, not take a single dead cap hit, not do anything. He needs to have a bounce back year. And like I mentioned at the top of the stream, the NFL stands for not for long. I love Michael Carter and his ability and what he can bring, but he had a bad year last year. And how much do you want to attribute that to back quarterback play? How much you want to attribute that to the offensive line? Who knows? But this is a very, very important year for him. The same thing goes for Bam Knight. Bam Knight was an undrafted free agent rookie. There is no incentive or need to keep him around at all. And while he came on and exploded and blew me away, I love me some Bam Knight, towards the end of the year, he fell off. Now, again, how much of that is because of the offensive line? How much of that is because every defense on the planet put 9 guys in the box? You know what I mean? Just to stop the run. Those are things that we can definitely attribute to poor performance. But what happens when this offensive line gets better? You know what I mean? We have to have those conversations. And I don't feel comfortable banking on 2 guys that had really, really down years for what their standards are. Okay, not down years. Michael Carter had a down year. Bam Knight fell off hard after his first couple of games. I don't feel super confident saying that we're just going to run a 1-2-3 of running backs of Brees should be put on the IR immediately. I'm not rushing him back. But you're telling me that you feel super comfortable with Michael Carter, Bam Knight, and Ty Johnson as your 1-2-3 at running back for at least 4 weeks? I know I don't. And that's why I'm in on a guy like, I know a lot of people talk Zeke, and we can talk Zeke in a second. I see some comments about Zeke, so I'll hold off to talking about like Zeke and like maybe what some of the running backs options are. But like to say that we don't need to draft a running back or that we don't need to bring a running back in, I think is just an illogical fallacy. Like it just doesn't, not illogical fallacy, those are contradictions. It's a logical fallacy. It just doesn't make sense. We do need to bring somebody in. Now, the good thing is that let's say, Abby, I love me some Ty Johnson. I think Ty Johnson right now is running back 2 in this room right now. But that's just me. And if I say that out loud and too many people hear it, I might get absolutely annihilated. But Ty Johnson is the only guy on the roster not named Breece Hall who has home run hitting ability. If you can get him into open space, he can't make a guy miss. He can't do anything like that. But I think he can explode through the hole. And if you can create a big enough hole for him and have your offensive lineman get to the second level, that's the big thing. I think Ty Johnson, absolutely, Jimmy just said it. Ty Johnson is fast, man. He's got wheels. It's just get him into open space. He can't create his own space. That's the problem. Breece creates space. You know what I mean? When Breece has the ball, he doesn't go down and he creates space. But if you can get Ty Johnson open and in the open field, not a single person is catching him. He's taking it to the house every single time. There's not a person in the NFL that's going to catch him. It's just a reality. And so, well, outside of guys on the offensive side of the ball, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, boom. Let's try to get to the front. Let me see if I missed any big important comments. Oh, boom, 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 boom. Scrolling. Okay, this is a good question, Rico. Answer this whenever. I just don't want to forget this question. What do you think the wide receiver formation will be? Garrett Wilson outside? Would it be potentially OBJ in the slot and Lazard outside? Here's the thing, Rico. When we look at Nathaniel Hackett's favorite offensive formation, he loves running 12 personnel, 22 personnel, those kinds of formations where it's only 2 wide receivers. He doesn't tend to run a slot wide receiver very often. And when he runs a slot wide receiver, it's a big-bodied slot. This is why there is a real chance that Corey Davis doesn't go anywhere. Because my expectation would be that you put Garrett Wilson on the outside, Allen Lazard on the outside, and Corey Davis in the slot, so that you would run a big-bodied slot. Why? One, because if you run out of that formation, it gives like guys like Allen Lazard, like if you put Garrett as the X, Garrett is an X wide receiver. He should be lined up outside of the numbers every single time. Try to get him one-on-one as much as possible. But if you put Allen Lazard on the Z and then you put Corey Davis or like a guy like Corey Davis in the Y or the slot, or even the F, again, closer to the offensive line, it gives you the opportunity to look like you're going to throw the ball and play action into a very, very effective run. If we look at, there's a video and there's a clip, I think Nania has it, where Alan Lazard was playing as a big slot. No, he was playing as an F, I believe, which is right outside of the tight end, right? Like, tight end is right in line, like 2 yards to the right, boom, there's Alan Lazard. Alan Lazard comes in and hits and blocks 3 guys at the same time. He just comes in, boom, and hits all of them. And I think it was Aaron Jones was running the ball, was able to take it to the house. And it's such a big deal to have those abilities. But Nathaniel Hackett doesn't run slot very often. So I would expect a lot of this rotation that we're going to see in the wide receiver room, if we bring in OBJ and things like that, is going to be guys on the outside. We're going to see a lot of rotation on the guys on the outside, and our tight ends are going to see a massive amount of usage. I would not be surprised if we only carried like 3 running backs, or something along those lines, so that we can carry Nick Bawden, who we brought back, which is absolutely fantastic for this scheme, and so that we can run 4 tight ends. Or even maybe take 1 less wide receiver or 1 less insert other position on the field. Like maybe we carry 1 less linebacker than we did last year. There is a lot of that option because the tight ends are going to see a ton of utilization, and so are our 2 wide receiver sets when you look at Nathaniel Hackett and his like tendencies. Hope that answers it. Boom. Jimmy from Seattle, not worried about the antics off the field for a year of a Super Bowl run. These dudes will be shopped for picks next offseason after the parade unless Rodgers stays. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're absolutely right. Let's catch up. Let's catch up. I'm so far behind. Not impressed with Bam Knight. Like, yeah, I was impressed with Bam Knight in a situation of like he was an undrafted free agent. To see that guy with that ability go undrafted, I was impressed with that. But for me to be so impressed that I'm not taking another running back, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why not trade out of 13 and take a tackle in rounds 1 and 2? I think Breland or Cody Mock will be available. Okay, here's the thing, right? We don't need to take a tackle in round 1. The only tackle I think that the New York Jets are going to be really all in on is going to be a guy like Broderick Jones. And the reason I say that is because Broderick Jones' ceiling at the offensive tackle position is the highest amongst all of those guys. That being said, if Will Levis isn't there at 7, I think Broderick Jones is a Las Vegas Raider. Straight up. So when you trade out of 13, and let's say, like I mentioned this a little bit earlier, Jalen, if you trade out of 13, it's going to be somewhere into the mid-20s. I don't think you target offensive tackle there. I think you have to target John Michael Schmitz. Phil said it perfectly. I think you have to target John Michael Schmitz because John Michael Schmitz is by far and away the best center in this class. He fits our scheme incredibly well, and he has like the possibility of being a franchise center for the next 15. Like he could be our next Mangold. And that's, I don't think you can pass up on that. Now, in round 2, that's definitely a conversation that you can have. Is Blake Freeland going to be there? Is Darnell Wright going to be there? Is DeJuan Jones going to be there? Cody Mock, I see more as an interior guy at the next level than a tackle, but Cody Mock, is he going to be there? There's one other guy that I'm forgetting that's an offensive tackle that I like in like the second round. Well, I didn't mention him because I think he's going to go in the first round, but like Anton Harrison might fall. Like that I don't think that's real, but like he might fall. Who my friend? Matthew Bergeron, that's his name. Out of Syracuse, bring a New York kid home. There are a lot of these types of guys that you might be able to get in like the second or the third round. And so that's a great option. That's a great availability. And there's a great, it's a great way to look at the team and to look at what happens. So like, yeah, this is a great option though. Love me some Ty Johnson. I talked about this earlier, but I'm going to talk about it again. Boom. Love it. Come back up. we should draft a running back, not get overweight Zeke. Zoe, I kind of agree with this take. A guy like Eric Gray, who I think will be available in the like 5th round, is a guy that I really, really like. A guy like Dwayne McBride out of UAB might be available late. A guy like Rashawn Johnson, he's my favorite late round running back, the guy out of Texas. I think he can do a lot of things. I have a buddy who's a Pitt fan. I think somebody mentioned it in the chat earlier, but Israel Abanikanda out of Pitt, he had a great year, and he's only 20 years old. There's a lot of those conversations where, like, you know what? Maybe you can get one of these later round guys to come in. And remember, I think our offensive line is going to get better, and I think that our running system is really easy for a lot of running backs to pick up. Harlan doing his job. Why doesn't Harlan have a wrench? Harlan, you're going to get a wrench. There you go. Harlan has a wrench. How come there are 83 watchers and only 38 likes? Hit the like button to support the channel. Thank you very much, Harlan. Always helping a boy out. What do you think of the Jeremiah mock? Had Nolan Smith to the Jets at 13. He's close with Joe Douglas. Does he know something? No. If we look at if we look at Jeremiah's mock and the reasoning that he said to take Nolan Smith, and I'm not anti-Nolan Smith. Let me be very upfront with that. I'm not anti-Nolan Smith, but let me say some things, and then you tell me if it makes sense, Jose, right? The New York Jets a year ago signed Carl Lawson to a 3-year deal. He's still currently on this team, and I think he's going to stay. Now let's talk about last year's draft. Last year's draft, we traded back into the 1st round to get Jermaine Johnson, who statistically was one of the best rookie edges when you look at percentage of like sacks and stuff like on their snap count. Was fantastic. Now let's keep going. We then went back into that same draft, and in the fifth round, we took Michael Clemens. And undrafted free agent rookie, or not rookie, but 2nd-year edge Bryce Huff exploded onto the scene. When you take all of that into consideration, why would we go back into the draft and say, you know what? Why would we go back into the draft and in the 1st round in back-to-back years take another edge? I just don't think it makes any logical sense. And talking about, oh, we're going to lose Carl Lawson. Oh, we're going to, we might lose Bryce Huff. Like, according to who? Why would we lose Bryce Huff? Why can't we just extend him and keep him around? If he can give us another year of production, and that's the real thing why we only 2nd round tagged him, if he can show that he can do it in back-to-back years, why wouldn't we just give him the what's his name? What's the edge that we signed last year that we traded? We brought him in from Houston. Oh, man. Give me a second. I'll see it. Jacob Martin. Why can't we just give him the Jacob Martin deal? Because that's why we cut. Why did we trade Jacob Martin? Because Bryce Huff was doing his job better. There you go. So that's why I don't think there's anything there. Because, like, one, Nolan Smith is an insane athletic freak, and any defensive coach or defensive coordinator would love to have him on the team. That being said, it just doesn't make sense to take. This draft needs to be about getting players that can impact this team immediately. Immediately. And so, yeah. Buffalo Jet fan in the house. Absolutely. I love me some Liquid Death, dude. This is what's helping me stop drinking soda. I'm tricking my body. I'm drinking water, and because it's carbonated, I don't get a ton of caffeine in my system. So yeah. Cool. Miss anything? I want to make sure, like, I don't miss any big, like, really good questions. It's hard, man. There's, like, almost 100 of you guys in here. It's hard keeping up with the chat. Remember, Super chats, skip the line. That's awesome. Is Schmitz worth picking at 13? No. I think that's taking him at 20 to 23 and all those things, I still think is a reach. But with how important the position is, I would take him there. And to have the 5th-year option, I would take him there. That being said, 13, way too high. You got to trade out of 13 if at all possible. You got to sell somebody on something when it comes to like New England is going to do something. You have to convince a team to get in front of New England because New England, let's say one of the tackles is still on the board. You know, like if Peter Skoronski is on the board, and I love Peter Skoronski, I think he's fantastic. I just don't think he fits the mold of what the New York Jets think a tackle is. I think that Joe Douglas is going to see him as a guard at the next level. If you can convince a team that needs an offensive lineman to get in front of New England to take a Peter Skoronski, you should do it. Like, absolutely, you should do it. If Paris Johnson Jr. is there, I think he's a Chicago Bear already at this point. But, like, I think the only tackle that you're taking at 13 is probably going to be Broderick Jones if you're Joe Douglas. And you're probably trying to trade out of that position as much as possible. And so you got to sell. Is Brian Branch good enough to sell to a team that maybe needs a safety to come up for it? There's a lot of those conversations to be had there. John Naughty, thank you so much for the super chat. If we have all this money, why didn't we retain Rankins? How about Quan? Because we tried to retain Rankins, but Rankins got paid. Like, Rankins got $10.5 million. In no world is paying Rankins $10.5 million worth it. Like, I just don't think that's... Like, I like Rankins, but I wanted Rankins at, like, 8 or 9. Like, 9 was stretching it. But at $8 million, that's where I would go. At 10.5, the Texans paid the Texans tax, and he went to that team for 1 year to be there. I think that's why. The other thing that you're going to look at, Naughty, and why we're not going to bring back Quan, is because, like, I think he's going to end up in Houston. I think we've reached out to Quan. I think we've talked to Quan to bring him back. But Quan wants to get paid. Remember that Quan was considered and looked at as a number 1 linebacker. And if it wasn't for his injuries derailing a big chunk of his career, we wouldn't have been able to get him as late as we did last year. Well, he showed that in a full year of production, he could stay healthy. There's a team that would be willing to pay for that. So, yeah, that's the way that I look at it. Harlan with the shameless plug. He's drinking his tea out of the Talking Just with Tigo mug, eating a black and white cookie. My late wife's favorite, especially from the bakery I brought them from. Yes, if you aren't aware, in the description is some Talking Just with Tigo merch. That's the last time I'll bring that up. I don't like the shameless plugs, and that's it. Tigo, what about DeForest Buckner and OBJ? We going all in? I presume so. Why not go and be aggressive for Evans? Just do whatever you can do to add talent. T. Rivera, I totally agree with this comment. Here's the one concern I have is you're talking about 2 guys that you have to trade for in DeForest Buckner and Mike Evans. Would I love to have Mike Evans? Absolutely. Why? 1, because I've always loved Mike Evans as a wide receiver. But 2, do you know who is his son in the NFL and is now newly in our division? Jalen Ramsey. Mike Evans eats Jalen Ramsey's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Just blah, blah, blah. There's nothing he can do against them. He just doesn't know how to cover Mike Evans. But now you're talking about trading assets to go and get Mike Evans. Now, I'm not anti going out and trading going and giving up assets to go and get give me a second, and going and getting a Mike Evans. But the other thing that you have to take into consideration is that he does have a really long contract. When you look at that, right? He is signed for 2023, his last year, but he has 3 void years on the back half of his contract. And his void year for 2024 is a $12 million dead cap hit. It's massive. So, and then the back 2 years are $7 million. Or it goes $12 million in 2024, $7 million in 2025, and $2.5 million in 2026. When you're trying to load up, I don't want to sacrifice that much of the future Ooh, sorry for smacking the microphone, guys. I don't want to sacrifice that much of the future for the short term. I would rather bring in guys for a year or two. Now, DeForest Buckner is a different conversation because DeForest Buckner, I think you could bring in and extend. But if you go and get like DeForest Buckner, what does his contract look like? You remember that you have to sign Quinnen Williams as well. And I think Buckner might want another relatively large contract. He's 29, so this is going to be his last payday per se, and he's probably going to want to stay in that $20-ish million range. So I don't see how you can have two $20+ million defensive tackles. That's why I'm looking at guys like Matt Ioannidis or Calais Campbell, because I think you can bring those guys in on shorter term deals, and both of those guys are going to be brought in for under $10 million. Remember that we don't need a superstar next to Quinnen Williams. We just need a guy that's going to get his job done. And Calais Campbell at 36 is going to just get his job done. Quinnen Williams is the star of the interior of that defensive line, and I don't want to mess with that. Now, again, when we're looking at the wide receivers, OBJ, DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Evans, I'm all on board with, but it all depends on what the compensation is. I guess that's the best way to say it. But I'm totally on board with that. Who else are we going to pick at 13? If we sign OBJ, we're not drafting a wide receiver. Are we going tackle? Going edge would be fine, in my opinion. Here's the thing. Like, if you go edge, are you assuming that Carl Lawson is gone? Because if Carl Lawson is gone, JJ comes up, and all of those things. Remember that JFM is still going to play on the outside. I don't know why Jets fans are obsessed with playing him on the interior of the defensive line. Like, it just doesn't make sense, like, at all, to play him on the interior of the defensive line. He is an edge. I want to see JJ getting more reps. Like, at 13, there are other positions that you can go on this team. Defensive tackle, like, Kalijah Cansey is definitely, in my opinion, worth the 13th pick. And defensive tackle is a much bigger need. Brian Branch at 13, I think, is probably worth it. There are, like, things like that. But, like you said, this is why 13 is probably up for sale, is because of the fact that the guys that we're probably going to be taking at 13 outside of the tackles might be available at 20, and recouping the third-round pick that we just lost for the Elijah Moore trade is probably a main priority for the New York Jets. That's why I look at it. I think our 13th pick has gone to Green Bay. I don't think so. I don't think they should. They should have to give it up. Rob, what's up? Absolutely. Totally agree here. Let's try to catch up. If Calais Campbell chooses the Bills over us, that would suck. Totally agree, Rob. Totally agree. I hope the Jets look into DeAndre Hopkins. I do too. I think that would be a great addition, and I don't think he would cost that much. I think like you could probably get him for like a sixth round pick. Like, if I'm being honest. After seeing the Brandon Cooks deal, that would be an insanely good, like that's not, Rob, I think that's still way too expensive. Look at the Brandon Cooks deal. Brandon Cooks is cheaper and doesn't have that big of a contract, right? And they got him for a fifth and a sixth. You're like, Arizona's already come out and said that we're not going to get him for what we expected, but we need to move him. Like, we can't keep him on the roster. Like, we need to free up the money. And D-Hop would be a great addition to the team. Abby talking about best player available at 13 if we still have the 13th pick. I think you got to trade out of it. Recouping assets is going to be the best thing because we don't need starters per se on this team. We need depth. And that's the way that I look at it. D-Hop said he'd rework his contract. Absolutely. And if we rework his contract and add just 2 void years to his contract, we can lower his cap hit from like the $20-something million to $5 million. DeAndre Hopkins is, I'll pull up the exact numbers. Give me 30 seconds and I'll go find it. I just need to scroll up in this DM. No. Gunny tweeted this. Oh, wait. Did I like it? Nope, I didn't like it. Why didn't I like this tweet? Man, now I'm an idiot. Haha. Here's the explanation from Spotrac about the trade. If you were to trade for wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, the new team acquires 2 years, $34.3 million. $19.45 million in 2023, which would be the first year, and $14.914 in the second year. If you do a full cap conversion and you add 3 years, 3 years to his salary cap, you can convert $19.45 million into $5 million. So, like, you can totally bring him in for a really, and not be that expensive on the cap. That's definitely an option. I figure we'll address DT in free agency. That's a possibility. Definitely a possibility. If we have Campbell / Smart at DT, maybe moving JFM over for some snaps. I just don't know where in the draft I would want to get a defensive tackle. Here's the thing. Remember, we do still have Solomon Thomas as well, who's going to get more snaps than Tanzel Smart. Calais Campbell is going to be a starter right next to JFM. Not JFM, next to Quinnen. JFM already gets some reps inside, and so does Michael Clemens. He also gets some reps inside. But the expectation that JFM or Michael Clemens or any of these guys are going to take a large chunk of snaps on the inside is just not a reality. JFM, statistically, the eye test, the everything, is better outside. So is Michael Clemens. They just have insane strength to be able to do that stuff and to play inside when they need to. Keeping those guys outside is the best thing for us. And so getting a Calais Campbell and then taking a defensive tackle in like the 4th or the 5th round is probably where you want to do it. That's where you can get guys that are still who are going to be on that same level as a guy like Solomon Thomas, right? Solomon Thomas was a number 3 overall pick, and that was a massive overdraft, and he hasn't lived up to that potential. But in the 4th or the 5th round, if you can get a guy who has some upside, who's probably right now an equivalent to what Solomon Thomas is, that would make a ton of sense. And it just again, I think Tanzel Smart has earned his right to do some reps and all of that stuff. So there you go. Red John, thank you for the super chat. Are we really going with Zach as the number 2 QB? No, absolutely. Red John, he should be the number 2 QB. There is no incentive to, I see it already, draft Hendon Hooker at Stetson Bennett. Nope, absolutely not. Especially those 2 guys. No, thank you. Signing a guy doesn't make sense. Like, remember that, like, I think, at least, that Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Jet. And Aaron Rodgers just doesn't miss time. Just doesn't miss time at all. He played last year with a broken thumb. And so that's why I feel kind of okay with Zach at number 2. Like, it's just the reality of it. I feel cool with Zach at number 2 because, one, I don't want to waste draft assets on a quarterback that'll never see the field. Understand that. If we draft a quarterback and if we're drafting a quarterback, Stetson Bennett and Hendon Hooker are undrafted free agent acquisitions at this point for me. I'm not wasting a draft pick on those guys. But, like, if you want to get somebody else, like, let's say, what's his name? There's one guy that had a pretty interesting, okay, let's say Max Dugan or Dorian Thompson-Robinson or Clayton Tune or one of Jake Haener. You get one of those guys at the end of the season or at the end of the draft. Understand that those guys will never see the field. Ever. Right? Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt, and when he's hurt, plays through his injuries. And if he's here for the next 2 years, we're going to run it back with Zach at some point in time in the future. Like, that's just a reality of it. So I'm not worried about quarterback 2. So I'm not going to waste a ton of money on a quarterback 2 or a draft pick on a quarterback 2. We don't need to, like, at all. There's no need to waste assets for that position. Like, for real, honestly, I would go get whoever wins the XFL, go sign that guy to be quarterback number 4, right, for the team, and I would legitimately just run 3 quarterbacks every game, Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson, and Chris Streveler. And knowing that Streveler and Zach are never going to see the field. That's it. It's the reality of it. If we don't get Campbell, I want Jonathan Hankins. That's a good one. That's a good one. You're crazy. Is this in regards to I don't know what this is in regards to. I get that for a lot of things. Zach at number 2 equals season over if Rodgers gets hurt for more than 2 weeks. I don't think so. Rob, you are undervaluing. You're undervaluing the level of Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett had a Blake Bortles-led football team and had them go to an AFC championship. That's the reality of the situation. That's the reality of the situation. And Rob, I'm going to go because I just saw your comment. I'm going to go all the way down here. If Rodgers gets hurt, our season is over. Do you really think that Hendon Hooker or Stetson Bennett, Hendon Hooker, who's coming from Tennessee, a guy who is coming from the worst college when it comes to the transition to the NFL game and has an ACL tear, is going to do any better than Zach Wilson? I don't think so. Honestly. He doesn't know how to read a defense. He doesn't. The same problems that we have with like Zach is going to happen there. Like, I'd go to UCF. The head coach for Tennessee, the offensive coordinator for Tennessee used to be the head coach for UCF. I understand what that offense does to a fundamental level. Transitioning as a quarterback from that Tennessee system to the NFL is going to be insanely hard. And at 25, he needs 2 years minimum to get up to NFL speed. Not worth it. Then you look at Stetson Bennett, another guy, he's older than Tom Brady, but a guy that in the middle of the season, people tend to have short-term memory. There was a point in time that Georgia was looking at benching Stetson Bennett because he wasn't doing it. Just because he turned it around and won the national championship because Georgia's team is insane doesn't mean it's worth it. That's the way that I look at it, is okay, remember that we're also paying. We're going to have to pay Aaron Rodgers and Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is still on the roster for $10 million. That's a lot of money to invest in the quarterback position for a quarterback who historically doesn't miss time at all. And an offensive coordinator that has won an insane number of games with below average NFL quarterback play. Nathaniel Hackett knows how to scheme up a win with absolute dog crap at quarterback. That's why I'm not worried. There you go. You're wrong. I've been around football my entire life, and to sit here and think Hooker or Bennett are worse than Zach Wilson, yeah, they are. If Hooker was going to be taken in the first round and was going to be a reason a general manager loses, just lost his job. Hendon Hooker is not ready, one, because of health, to start immediately, and two, the Tennessee Titans offensive scheme is so anti-NFL. He was throwing at guys that were wide open because of the scheme. Their whole scheme in Tennessee is about running 2 wide receivers outside the numbers. And what that forces is, if you're playing zone, that puts a linebacker on a wide receiver. And because Tennessee had 2 speed demons on the outside in Jalen Hyatt and the other guy that I can't remember, that makes a ton of sense. Boom. No linebacker is going to keep up with that wide receiver. And if you wait long enough, and remember that Tennessee had a pretty good offensive line, if you wait long enough, one of those 2 guys is going to be open because the safety can't cover both guys. And they tended to run the outside guy, just ran straight, and the inside guy ran cutting inside. There is the whole problem. That system doesn't work in the NFL at all. Safeties can cover, slot corners can cover, and they have the speed to do it. That's what's going to happen. So he doesn't know how to read a defense because of what happened in Tennessee. And then you add on top of the fact that he is 25 years old, 26 years old. And you add on top of the fact that even while he's still ahead of schedule, he's probably not going to play anytime soon. I'm not arguing, if you want to take another quarterback in the draft, cool, whatever. I just think that's a waste of assets. That's just the reality of it. I think that we can go and get, again, the history is it that Aaron Rodgers doesn't get hurt. And I am totally cool with, running it back with Zach, with Nathaniel Hackett, who knows how to call a play better than running it with a guy who's 26 years old and doesn't run an NFL scheme well. That's me. Again, I know that a lot of people don't agree with that. I know a lot of people are terrified of Zach Wilson and whatever, but I think that Zach Wilson's failures are more on Mike LaFleur than anything else. Yes, not hitting a 5-yard dump route is on him. That's all up here. But I don't think wasting like a bunch of money on a backup or anything. Like if you're telling me like, if you want to bring in like a $1 million backup, something along those lines, that's fine. Like we're probably going to have to sign a quarterback anyway, right? But I just don't care. That's the reality of it. Like the quarterbacks that are going to be brought in, like I just, like go get John Wolford for a league min deal for like $1 million. If that's going to make you guys feel so like whatever, like, okay, there you go. Like go get Jeff Driscoll or he's going to cost $1 million. Whoever it is, they're never going to see the field ever. It doesn't matter. That's why I don't think it's that big of a deal. Boom. Yeah, Rico was a great system. We should know. Denzel Mims was in that system. Absolutely. Well, I don't like the Denzel stuff, but yeah. I say get Wentz, but I hope you're right. Here, no, I don't think you go get Wentz. Wentz isn't going to sign with a team at all. He's going to be available in the middle of the season. So if somebody goes down, you just bring him in at that point. Wentz is going to want a ton of money. He's not going to come for the cheap. And while I'd be cool if, like, worst case scenario, stuff hits the fan, like, you bring in a guy like that, I honestly think Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota, like Mason Rudolph, those guys aren't going to be signed, and they'll be available in the middle of the season. Like, go bring in Brian Hoyer just to go get an inside scoop of what Bob wants to do. I don't know. So, that's that. This is why Jalen Hyatt is an unknown, because he can run like 3 routes and almost never got touched. Exactly. And that's the biggest problem. DKB, welcome to the chat. Is that, like, again, my problem with drafting is because people keep up bringing guys like Hendon Hooker or Stetson Bennett. No. Like, if you're going to draft a quarterback, like, take someone who's not a project for his entire rookie career, like his rookie contract, and then when he's finally off of his rookie deal and maybe ready to start contributing as a legitimate backup, is already 30. Like, that's the problem. Go and get a Tyson Bagent, who's 22. Go and get a Max Duggan, who's 23. Like, young guys who can, like, who aren't going to be 30 by the time that we're actually going to use him. I'm telling you, you are wrong, friend. You are falling victim to the hater BS. So when Bennett and Hooker go ball, just remember I pleaded for them. Jimmy, I am more than happy to eat crow when it's time to eat crow. I do it willingly and readily. This is one of those takes, and again, I don't make my takes based on other people's stuff. I have very wild assumptions and things and they're all mine. Most of them are mine. I get swayed sometimes with Dom C because I really, really trust what Dom C says. I think everybody should get swayed with what Dom C says. Like, if I'm just being honest, you should respect Dom C. That being said, most of my draft predictions and stuff like that come from me and what I evaluate as a guy. Like a great example of that, and I'll eat crow on this. I had Zach Wilson as quarterback 1 in that draft, and I fell victim to potential over floor. That's the reality of it. Like, now, do I still believe in Zach Wilson's potential? Absolutely, but like in 2 years. I don't want to see him on the field for 2 years. That's just the reality of it. And yeah, I'll eat crow there. Bam Knight. I had the New York Jets not having Bam Knight on the roster. And when he was put on the 53-man roster, I had a problem with it. I was wrong. Just straight up, I was wrong. Just period. And there it goes. Or another one with, I think a lot of people were wrong, and a lot of people were like, but I never thought in a million years that Sauce Gardner would be the pick at 4. Sauce Gardner was the best player in the draft for me. He was number 1 on my big board last year. I had him above everybody. It was Sauce, some space, and then everybody else. That's how much I loved Sauce. And I said, if Sauce doesn't get taken at 3, 1, that's a mistake. But 2, I don't know if the Jets will take him at 4. I don't know if the Jets will take him at 4. It's a real thing. And then they took him. So I'll eat crow. I'm totally cool with eating crow whenever it's time to eat crow. But I don't think I'm going to eat one with this, Jimmy. And if I am wrong, you can come back to the chat and yell, be like, I told you so, and I'll listen to you. Zach Wilson 100% needs a redshirt year. I agree. I don't disagree with this take. But you can have him have a redshirt year as quarterback too when we're looking at a quarterback that doesn't miss time. Like, he just doesn't miss time. I'm going to pull up Aaron Rodgers' career. Aaron Rodgers. Let's look at his career. He hasn't missed a game in 5 years. And then he missed 8 games in that year. And then before that, dude, he just doesn't miss time. Just doesn't miss time. It's how many years? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 of the last 15 years, he has not missed a game. And 5 of the last years are the one that does it. Like, I'm just saying, I'm not that worried about him missing time. And there's that. Because here's the reason, is because 1, again, I am really high on the fact that he just doesn't miss games. But 2, and here's the other thing, is you need to push him. You can't, like, you still need him engaged, in my opinion. Like, Zach needs to, and he's a professional. I think he's going to stay engaged no matter what. But, like, for me, I think there's a big mental thing that would really help him by having the same mentality where I'm 1 play away from starting, because then every rep that he takes is even more important. Every snap and every film study and is infinitely more important if he thinks he's quarterback 2. That's why on the depth chart, he should be listed as quarterback 2. It's for his mentality. Because if he goes down, Streveler can just come in and we can play gadget plays there. Like, the NFL, I think, is going to have the rule where they're going to carry 3 quarterbacks. And so, like, and remember, Nathaniel Hackett won games with bad quarterback play. A lot of games with bad quarterback play. Went 13-3 with bad quarterback play. So, like, that's the whole thing. That's the way that I look at it. I get this argument. Tom Brady never missed time till he did either. I get it. I get it. Braden, what's up? Hi, Tigo. If we get to keep pick 13, I want to trade back. Who are our most likely trade partners? Let me pull up the first round, and I'll tell you. This is a great question. First round, all enter the draft. Okay. Teams that might be wanting to come up. The Washington Commanders. If a guy like Peter Skoronski is available, or maybe one of the quarterbacks, which I doubt will be there, or anything like that, or even the Pittsburgh Steelers, who need help at the offensive tackle position. If one of the tackles not named Broderick Jones is available there, I think a lot of people think that the New England Patriots are going to take a tackle. Maybe one of those guys are going to want to come up at 16 or 17. Another team that I look at that might want to come up, Seattle. If a guy like Tyree Wilson falls, I don't think he will, but let's say Tyree Wilson falls for some reason and is there at 13, I think Seattle might want to come up to get that edge guy in front of New England. The other would be, what about teams that need a cornerback, like desperately? So let's look at the Baltimore Ravens or the I almost called them San Diego. It's not San Diego. The Los Angeles Chargers. Maybe they want to come up and get one of the, like, let's say Witherspoon is available and they're really in love with him. The Patriots could take a DB. Brian Branch maybe they fall in love with the safety and they go get a safety there. I doubt it because the NFL just doesn't. The real teams that I look at, though, are the teams that are going to be coming up for a wide receiver. So I look at, like, the Chargers, the Ravens, the Giants, the Cowboys. Maybe one of those guys want to come up to get in front of the New England Patriots to have their pick of the wide receivers. That's the reality of it. And so you can fall. But those are a couple of the teams that might want to do it and might want to get in front of them. The Lions, they have extra draft capital. They want to come up and do all of those things. Like, that's the real thing. And since I don't think that Broderick Jones is going to be available at 13, I think he's already going to be he's going to be taken at 7. I think that's the reality of it. Great question. When does Arch Manning come to the drafts? After Zach's 5th year. Phil, I'm gonna everybody get your tinfoil hats ready. Let me go get my tinfoil hat. Alrighty, Phil. Tinfoil hats on. We're gonna go big brain here. Aaron Rodgers is gonna come to the New York Jets, and he's gonna play for 2 years. I think minimum of 2 years. So what does that mean? What does that mean? I think the New York Jets are probably going to take Zach Wilson's 5th-year option. Remember, tinfoil hats are on, guys. And so Aaron Rodgers will play for 2 years, win back-to-back Super Bowls, retire a legend, and then because Zach will be on his 5th-year option, we're going to see what Zach has. If Zach is legit, awesome. You re-sign Zach, you got your franchise quarterback for the next 15 years, and you go undefeated for the next 10 years. 12 back-to-back Super Bowls, the New York Jets, the greatest dynasty in NFL history. Now, let's say Zach's kind of a flop, right? It's not bad. He's not great, whatever. You create a San Francisco-like package to move up from 15 to 16, all the way up to the number 1 pick in the draft, and then you take Arch Manning, and we finally get a Manning in New York in the right colors. Boom. Tinfoil hats. There you go. I am wearing a hat with a Carnival cruise ship on it. There you go. Who's trading Zach? I'm not trading Zach. Zach should stay. Yeah, hey, look, like I said, I told you guys to put the tinfoil hat on. Told you that from the beginning. From the rip. You trade enough assets away, anybody will move off, right? Like the Bears moved off of 1, right? So to say that no one's going to trade the number 1 pick, I think is a little bit naive. Somebody will. Again, 3 years from now, who knows? What happens if Arch Manning isn't even the guy? You know, like what if he just fails at Texas? We have no idea what's going to happen. It's just fun to talk about it. I love the thinking Tigo law, but someone will take Archie. He will be a QB savant. I agree. But like I said, you got to trade up to 1 to go get him. If a team can pick Arch Manning, I don't think they're trading out of that pick. We don't know what he is yet. Like, that's the real thing, right? So, like, there's the reality there that we don't know what he is yet. But, like, 2, like, what if you already have your quarterback? Like, what if you drafted a quarterback in the first round the year before and you're in the number 1 pick? Like, okay, here's a great example, right? The Texans are going to take a quarterback at number 2 this year. There is a good to fair chance that the Texans are back at the number 1 pick next year. Are they going to, they're going to make the mistake and they're going to take Bryce Young, right? And so they're going to be at the number 1 pick again. Are they going to take Caleb, what's his name? The guy at USC? Caleb Williams. That's his name, I think. Are they going to take Caleb Williams? No, of course not. They took Bryce Young. They might sell that pick for a team that wants Caleb Williams. Maybe. Again, we don't know what's going to happen. It's 3 years from now. Why are we talking about it? Jets fans, we got to be real. Once Rodgers leaves, this team will be dismantled to the bone. We won't have any great player once Rodgers is gone. So thinking Zach is going to be in a good spot is a fantasy. Why would you say that? What players are we going to lose after Rodgers leaves that are core fundamental pieces to this team? Why can't we re-sign Garrett Wilson or Sauce Gardner or Quinnen Williams or Jermaine Johnson or like insert first round tackle that we're going to have? Like, this all works out perfectly because of the fact that, like, when Aaron Rodgers comes off of the books, because he's going to have a big contract, we're going to free up all of that space for these young guys that we can play. Here's a follow-up. It's a fact. Look at all the Super Bowl super teams. What do they look like post-Super Bowl? It's a fact. The Bengals ran it back, and they still have all of those guys. The Eagles were able to somehow keep almost everybody. You know what I mean? The Eagles, when they went to the Super Bowl and they won with Nick Foles, they didn't fall apart because of talent. They fell apart because Carson Wentz sucked. The Kansas City Chiefs ran it back. The Kansas City Chiefs, like again, we're going to lose a lot of veterans. Like, I don't expect OBJ to be here beyond 1 year, Calais Campbell to be on here 1 year, any of those things. And here's the thing. I think we're not a super team either. So that's the thing. We're a really good team, but there's not a single super team in the NFL. G makes a great point. The Rams stayed intact. The problem with the Rams was that they got hurt. So now they're blowing everything up. That's the thing. So, and again, you're really down on Zach Wilson, and I understand why you are, but I still have faith that he can turn it around. And like, if he can, he has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Now, I'm not banking on it, but what we're talking about is a statistical improbability of a guy who's going to turn it around, who's going to turn it around. It would be like a statistical outlier, and I get all of those talking points, but that's that. The Rams are falling apart now, though. No. The Rams are blowing it up because the quarterback that they can't move on from, that they paid $40 million, that's the reality of it. They're blowing it up because Stafford is hurt. Not because they have to. They could have kept the band together. Like, imagine if Stafford was healthy. That's the real thing. He isn't. So because he isn't, and you can't move on from him this year, you start accumulating, and you haven't made a first-round pick since 2016. You start making those moves to retool. Totally on board. But they've been going all in, building these super teams for like 6 years now. Going through different quarterbacks, trying to do it. There's that. That's true. We are built much differently from the Rams or the Bucks. They relied almost entirely on veteran, really expensively paid guys. We're not. Most of our talent is rookies and guys who are young on cheap deals. So when it comes time to pay the guys that we need to, we're not going to be paying a quarterback. Because let's say in those 2 years, let's say we don't pick up Zach's fifth-year option. That's fine. We can load up in a draft and go and get a quarterback. There's a lot of things we can do. I don't think we're super built like some of these super teams that you're referencing that fell apart. A lot of our talent is in young guys that aren't being paid. And so now we can pay the quarterback. Well, when the quarterback's contract falls off of the books, let's say in 2 years we split from Zach and from Aaron. That's fine. Now you can move up and draft a quarterback in the draft, like the number 2, number 3 pick or something along those lines, and do that. And so there you go. What do you mean? I absolutely am. All of the guys that he's brought in aren't key pieces. They're not like super important pieces. What key piece did he bring in from free agency that's going to take reps away from one of the young guys. That's the point. Bringing in Allen Lazard doesn't affect Garrett Wilson. Bringing in OBJ doesn't affect Garrett Wilson because neither one of those guys are better than Garrett Wilson. Bringing in a running back like a Zeke or a Kareem Hunt or whoever won't take reps away from Breece Hall when he's fully healthy. Breece will still be the best running back on the roster. And that's the key piece that matters. No matter what offensive tackle or offensive guard that we take, they're not going to take reps away from Elijah Vera-Tucker. Let alone Mekhi Becton if he's healthy. And that's a big if, but that's a different conversation. We're not drafting a cornerback, and we signed DJ Reed, didn't take anything away from Sauce. That's, I think, my point, is those are the key pieces. Carl Lawson is gone probably after this year, at the end of this year, and so JJ is going to get his spot and ability to move in. That's the way I look at it. G makes a great point. We've got like 5 or 6 Pro Bowlers under 25. Absolutely. These guys have the potential. So, like, again, yes, we're going to load up, and I think we will have a fall off because we're going to lose a bunch of these veterans, but it's all about building the pipeline. This draft is going to be really, really important for the Jets because these are the players that are going to start playing in 2 years. That's, I think, what I'm trying to get at. If you build a pipeline of players, and that's what we need to focus on right now, is building that pipeline of players, your team should never really take a dip beyond like being that bad. It's win now, Tigo. He is bringing in dudes who are better than guys we have on the roster. Once we win a Super Bowl, those vets leave. Okay, but here's the thing. Name one guy that we're bringing in that is better than anybody that we have on the roster. That's what I'm saying, Jimmy. Like, who are the guys that we're bringing in that are better than the guys that we have now? Because OBJ, DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Lazard, Randall, they're not better than Garrett Wilson. Those running backs aren't better than Breece. Calais Campbell is not better than Quinnen. That's my point. I agree. You are going all in right now. But what my point is, Rob, is that even though we're going all in now, we're filling out the depth of the roster. That's the point. We're not filling out the top half of the roster. Remember that when we went, ooh, what the crap was that? When we went all in, it's not, I don't think the window is as short as everyone thinks it is. We aren't building our roster like everybody else who built these super teams did. Because they went all in on veterans that were better than what they had at that current point. They went all in, like the Rams trading for Jalen Ramsey and then paying him was because they literally didn't have a defensive back worth anything. Going and getting and trading for Matthew Stafford, like those are the things. And so there you go. Hepburn in the house. What's up? What's up, John? The window is not long-term, but we are not going to be able to extend the entire core. But again, why not? The salary cap is going to explode, and we're not going to be paying a quarterback at the end of this. Why not? Why can't we keep those guys? Why can't we keep Garrett Wilson and Sauce and Quinnen and AVT and those guys? Other teams keep a lot of their stars, and we're not like, and those some of those teams are paying like quarterbacks massive amounts of money. And we won't be. And here's the thing. I think, like, again, let's remove Zach Wilson from the equation. Let's say Zach's not the guy. You don't take the 5th-year option on Zach. You only have Aaron Rodgers for 2 years. Like, San Francisco has been able to maintain their super team for years, running horrible quarterbacks. Jimmy G is not a quarterback that any team is convincing. That's my point. I don't think OBJ is going to start. Here's the thing. Is OBJ going to start over Garrett Wilson? Rodgers is going to start, absolutely. We talked about that. But you can move on from quarterbacks. That happens all the time. And you don't see a mass flock of teams and players leaving. San Francisco was able to keep their team around, and they're moving on to the last pick of the draft and a guy who hasn't played football in 3 years. So there's that. Calais Campbell is going to start short term because, like, we just need a defensive tackle. There's that. But we can draft his replacement. Chuck Clark is going to start, absolutely. But again, we can also draft his replacement. We're talking about that a lot. Zeke would play. I don't think Zeke would play a lot. I think Zeke is going to be a short yardage guy. Lazard is going to start, absolutely. Hardman is not going to start. I don't know where you got that idea from. Hardman is going to be Braxton Berrios' replacement. I don't think he's going to start. Hey, we have Denzel Mims. But again, that's right now. We have Allen Lazard for the next 4 years. Over who? Who is OBJ going to start over? Who is OBJ going to start over? Allen Lazard? Or Hardman? Well, maybe Hardman. You don't think Denzel Mims is going to be a better wide receiver with Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball at him? Come on, Jimmy. Be real here. Be real here. Mims is a wild card, absolutely. But I think, well, remember Corey Davis is still on this team. OBJ comes to this team, he's wide receiver 4. I never said he was better than Elijah. That's not what I said. You said we didn't have any young wide receivers. We do. And again, we can draft wide receivers. Like you're talking about, like we're not going to fiddle with this team. Yes, he's better than, but is he going to start over him? No. In what we use, man, that's the thing. We want big-bodied wide receivers. OBJ is a slot guy nowadays, and we don't use this. We're not going to use the slot that much. That's the thing. And so, and again, what's stopping the Jets from taking a wide receiver in the draft? Nothing. This is again, you're looking at the roster the way that it is now and then projecting this same exact roster over 2 years. Dude, we got 2 drafts. We got this draft and next draft. What if Joe Douglas surprises all of us like he did with Sauce Gardner and takes JSN at 13? I wouldn't do it, but what if he does? Boom, there you go. Young wide receiver on the team that's going to be here for a long time. Again, and that's the whole point. I'm not saying that we're going to maintain and be a super team for a long time. No. That's not the point. But saying that, our core pieces are these older veterans that we're bringing in, I think is absurd. I don't agree with that take. OBJ is going to come in, and he's probably going to play 30% of the snaps at wide receiver, and that 30 to 40% of the snaps at wide receiver, and I think that that's absolutely fine. That's absolutely where he needs to be. Now, we can probably take a wide receiver in the 3rd round and develop him into something and keep him on as a young guy. Okay, let's say Corey Davis isn't here and Mims isn't here. Okay, so we got to draft a wide receiver. So we draft a wide receiver and we develop a guy like that. That's absolutely an option that we can do. We can draft, we can bring guys in. That's the whole point. Yes, the way that you go in to win now is going all in on these older veterans who are known commodities. But just because we bring Calais Campbell in doesn't mean that we're not drafting a defensive tackle. Those are not separate from one another. I talked about it at the top of the stream. Just because we're drafting, let's say we sign Ben Jones, doesn't mean that I wouldn't take John Michael Schmitz in the 1st round. Absolutely, you would take John Michael Schmitz in the 1st round. He's better. He's probably going to be better than Ben Jones, but it's a thing. And that's the way that I look at it. Again, you can still bring guys in. We're still probably going to, even if we sign Calais, which I really hope happens, we're still going to draft a defensive tackle. My guess is the guy out of Texas in the 4th round. I think it's Keandre Coburn is his name. It's the Texas defensive tackle. I think he gets taken in the 4th round. You know what I mean? I think you're probably looking at, we're probably taking a wide receiver this draft, probably in the late rounds, and probably going to take a guy who's a project. Maybe he turns out into something. There's a lot of things that can happen. So, yeah. No, but what I'm saying, Rob, is I'm using the Ben Jones example for the rest of everything that, like, the list that you made. Just because you sign OBJ, just because you sign Zeke, just because you sign Calais, just because you sign anything, doesn't mean that you're not going to draft their replacements. Doesn't mean that you can't go out and still invest in this team and get their replacements to sit behind these guys for a year. That's the point that I was trying to make. Boom. My point is these dudes will not be on the team once A-Rod retires. That means back to purgatory we go. What guys? The veterans or the young guys? Why would we not keep the young guys? I guess there's some miscommunication here. Like, why would we not keep Garrett Wilson? Why would we not keep Sauce? Why would we not keep Quinnen? Like, why wouldn't we keep these guys? Are you just assuming that they're going to want to leave? Is that what you're like? Is that where you're going from? I just want to understand. Is the assumption that these guys aren't going to want to stay? Let me know. Jesse P, member of the channel. Davis is going to be included in the Rodgers trade. Maybe. That's a reality. I don't know what this Rodgers trade is going to look like anymore, man. I have no idea. Oh. Yes, we did. We did sign fullback Nick Bawden. He is back. Really love that. Would you swap 13 for 45 and Aaron Rodgers? Look, I'm not the biggest fan of that move, but probably. Like, if that gets the deal done, like if you're looking at it and you're like, oh, we want 13, and I'm like, and then you can say, okay, like it's Aaron Rodgers and 45. I would do it just to get the deal done, and then you pick 42, 43, and 45, especially in a draft class that is so heavy with really, really talented players in the middle parts of the draft. I would totally do that. This is that. Like, again, I think Buffalo brought this up in his most recent video. I would do that, but that would be just like, okay, just get the trade done. I don't want to give up 13. Like, at all, because I would like to use 13 to accumulate other picks, Charles, like to go and get like a third round pick back. But if you're telling me that we can have 3 seconds, like, I would do it. See, yeah, I agree. I would hate to give up 13, but having 42, 43, and 45 would kind of be sick. Davis isn't worth trading for. Why would the Packers want a $10 million cap hit that's just going to get cut? Because they were interested in Corey Davis at the deadline last year. That's why, because they called the Jets for Corey Davis last year and this summer before the Aaron Rodgers talk happened. Like, they've showed interest multiple times for Corey Davis. That's why, Donut, thanks for stopping by as a Packers fan. No, we will maintain Sauce and Garrett, but the vets leave major holes at major needs. Jets will need to spend money and resources recouping only because Tigo wants Zach at QB. No. Again, let's eliminate Zach at QB1. Let's not take his fifth-year option. Let's start with a rookie QB after the 2 years of Aaron Rodgers. Zach goes to San Francisco and revitalizes his career probably because Kyle Shanahan is a quarterback whisperer. But, like, I think we can still fix those things. And I guess what we're saying, I think we're kind of talking about the same things, and I'm putting a positive spin on it, and you're putting a negative spin on it. Because, again, I agree. You're going to need to spend money and resources rebuilding the things that you lost. But that's just the way the NFL is. You do that anyway. Yeah. Am I the only one who just wrote the comment about enjoying watching you, and then you read my question? I agree just to get it done because that's going to help Joe Douglas bring in veterans. Worth the fight. I've seen you on other streams with damn, you're pleasant to watch. Somebody who actually understands football and is a Jet fan. I like a lot of other podcast guys, but I'm not sure they all know football. Like, the thing is when it comes, first of all, worth the fight. Thank you so much for stopping by and commenting and doing all that stuff. I appreciate it, and thank you for the compliments. I played football a lot, and the only reason I stopped playing football was because of my height. I didn't see a career or an opportunity to play football at the collegiate level, and so I stopped playing football. But football has always been my first love and everything like that. And so I really, really like value and like take a lot of things in the sense of like in-depth knowledge of the game, like that's where I come from when it comes to as a football fan, is the very in-depth analysis and watching tape and doing all of those things. That's how I like to do it, and using the analytics to back up the eye test and the different things like that. And so, yeah, that's the way that I love doing it. But yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate you. But what quarterback this year is worth a damn, Jimmy, that we're going to take that's going to be good in 2 years? Not one of them. It's not worth it. That's my point. None of these guys are worth a damn. Outside of the top 4 guys, maybe Tanner Mackey, but you taking him would be way too early. None of the guys that are going to be taken in the 4th or the 5th round, which is where you would take the quarterback, are going to be anything in this league. This is a bad quarterback draft outside of the top 4 guys. That's my point. If you want to take a Zach Wilson replacement, maybe next year. Maybe. I think a fair trade for Rodgers is 40 through and 43 and maybe a conditional. Donut, have you thought about doing stand-up? Because that's hilarious. Because that's honestly hilarious. This is a great joke. It's really funny. With all the talk around sexy free agents, why haven't there been any potential O-line signings? Well, we have. We signed 2 guys to the O-line, right? Don't forget that. We brought in a guard and a center. Well, we brought in 2 guard/centers. So there's that. Boom. And the real reality is there's no rush to sign a tackle or a center. I think a lot of these, that's the reality of it. There's no rush. There's a lot of guys on this, in this draft that are really worth it. Like at center, like you can get a starting center in the 2nd round, like a really, really good good 2nd round center, like a Luke Whippler, a Joe Tippmann. A lot of guys are really big on Avia. I think Avia is more of a guard at the next level, but I think he can play center. Like all of those guys can come in and start immediately. So there's that. But so you go from there. And then when you look at the offensive line, like remember, we still have pick 13. And no matter what Donut thinks when it comes to the trade, we're probably not going to give up 13 in the trade for Aaron Rodgers. There's no incentive to. Like Green Bay doesn't have that much leverage to be able to ask for a 1st round and be serious. Like anybody with half a brain who knows football knows that. But that being said, there are a lot of good tackles in this draft. What happens if one of the guys falls to 13 and like Broderick Jones is there? Well, like I don't want to pass up on Broderick Jones because we brought back, like someone brought it up, and this is an option, but like I don't want to pass up on Broderick Jones because we signed George Fant, and now we're going to have 5 tackles on the roster, 2 of those making money, one of those with an insanely high upside, another guy last year that we drafted that had really, really good potential, and like you crowd the room. There's no need to sign the tackle until after the draft, in my opinion. If Aaron Rodgers retires after this year, we'll go after Matthew Stafford next year. Kirk Cousins will be available probably. Dak Prescott, like this, is the new NFL every year. There's going to be a couple. Of the names that you listed, I think Matthew Stafford makes the most sense, right? Like, I think this is a real comment here, like a legitimate one that people should look at. If Rodgers is one and done, which I don't think he is, right? I legitimately don't think that Rodgers is one and done. I think Rodgers is probably here for 2 years, and there's 110 million reasons why. But, like, Stafford, like, if you're pivoting to another veteran quarterback, Stafford might be a good option. But that injury scares me. But I'm not going after, like, Kirk is going to want to get paid. I don't want to do that. Dak Prescott, he hasn't been able to do it with Dallas, and Dallas surrounded him with some of the best talent in the world. Like, we got to see what happens there. But if Matthew Stafford continues, like, if he, like, takes the next year off and, like, recovers, like, I'm not mad if we try to go for Matthew Stafford. Like, because next year is when they can actually move on from him, right? No, they can't. No, Matthew Stafford's not getting moved. It's not going to happen. Is there a chance Whitehead or Chuck Clark is going to play a coverage off linebacker so they can both get on the field at least to get Whitehead a chance to see if he plays any better? One of them is going to play free safety, in my opinion, worth the fight, not off the ball linebacker or anything like that. We've got linebackers that can do that. But I look at Jordan Whitehead's play last year when he was playing as like a coverage guy, and he's good enough to be better than what LaMarcus Joyner was last year at free safety, and Chuck Clark is better than what Jordan Whitehead was last year. So technically speaking, you would get an upgrade on both safety positions. I think the real thing, and Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7 mentioned this, and he brings this up as a good point. Until the draft happens, you can keep Jordan Whitehead. He has zero guaranteed money. You can get rid of him right after the draft. And if one of the safeties falls to a place where we feel comfortable taking him or taking the safety, you can take that guy and then cut Jordan Whitehead afterwards without any repercussions. So I think we need to really wait to see the draft play out until we can really find out what Whitehead is going to be on this team. Because, again, we can move on from him. I don't know, man. He's got a ton of money that he can still make in his career. I don't think he's going to retire. Money matters. I think the injury is a bigger concern for me. Packers fan going to be on a suicide watch after they see what they get for Aaron? Probably. A team like the Cowboys will want to trade up in front of the Chargers for Bijan. Yeah, probably. That makes a ton of sense. Makes a ton of sense. They're getting a fifth plus Corey. Okay, come on, guys. Let's not also fall into the madness that is Green Bay Packers fans trying to figure out what draft compensation for guys is going to look like. We're better than that. Jets fans going to be on suicide watch if Zach Wilson is their starter at training camp. Well, he won't be. Aaron Rodgers will be. Come on, donut. We know that. Everyone knows that. Alrighty, guys, we've been live for an hour and 48 minutes. 12 minutes left in the live stream. If you haven't hit the like button, what are you guys doing? Hit the like button. Greatly appreciate it. 72 likes, absolutely insane. Guys, remember, we're going to be doing a giveaway for all of our members. If you want to join the Talking Jets with Tigo Navy and get that cool sign, and let me find it. Get this cool little sign next to your name and get access to a bunch of fun emotes. Come on, Jesse, you're not using any of your emotes. Talking Jets with Tigo Navy. Boom. There's that. If you want to use the emotes, you can do that. Show my one of my favorite players on the New York Jets, Max Mitchell, some love. The mini Max Mitchells. Boom. Gotta love it. Drop the hearts in the chat for all the people who stop by and hang out. But yeah. If you want to become a part of the Talking Jets with Tigo Navy, click the join button down below. It costs less than a cup of coffee a month, gets you involved in all of our member-only giveaways and future member-only live streams. And yeah, there you go. Tigo, where would you pick Breece in this draft? Very similar to Bijan your opinion? Okay. Yes. Here's the thing, right? I don't think Bijan should go in the first round. I'm not saying that he's a bad running back. That is not what I'm saying. But I wouldn't take a running back in the first round. Period. That being said, I would put Breece as running back 1 and Bijan as running back 2. And so that's the way that I would look at it. I would look at it and be like, if the draft played out and not a single person, like if the draft played out normally and and no one traded up, no one did anything like that, the way that you would probably see it happen is Breece Hall to the Baltimore Ravens, and then Bijan Robins to the Buffalo Bills. Probably because those teams are so desperate at running back that they're not going to risk, right? That's the thing. Bijan Robinson is very good. Running backs aren't worth the first round, but the teams are so desperate at that position that they will justify it. Remember Bills fans last year wanting Breece Hall to be taken in the first round? That was the whole point. So, yeah. This is the way that I look at it. This is a great question, Phil. Thank you. The Bengals are another team to keep an eye on, and this is why maybe we should hold off on bringing in a running back, because you know who's a sneaky post-draft cut candidate? Joe Mixon. That is. I don't think that is a hot take at all. Joe Mixon legitimately might get cut from the team. He's due $10 million, and with what other guys are getting paid at running back, I don't know if they're going to feel super comfortable with that. And let's say Bijan Robinson is there in the first. They might just draft Bijan Robinson if none of the tackles are there and say, screw it. We don't need Joe Mixon. We got his replacement for much, much cheaper. And then you can probably bring Joe Mixon in on like a $5 or $6 million deal. And that is pretty adequate money, like for a running back in this day and age, and that would still keep our entire running back room underneath $10 million. Now, are the Jets probably going to do that? Probably not. This is just a pipe dream, but still. There you go. A lot of stuff there. Teams picking Bijan in the first are hoping they are as good as Brees. Absolutely. Absolutely. Shades of Mangold and DeBrick. Yep. Kincaid. Which Kincaid? What are you talking about? Who are you talking about? Dalton Kincaid? That who you're talking about? No. That who you're talking about? Jackson Kincaid? Who are we talking about? Kincaid is with a C. Dalton Kincaid? Oh, yeah. The tight end? Yeah, okay, cool. Dude, yeah, he's insane. He's going to be awesome. I still don't think he's the best tight end in the class, though. I know that a lot of people don't agree with me with this, but I've got like a major hard-on for Michael Mayer out of Notre Dame. I love that kid, man. I don't know. I really like me some Michael Mayer. He's not going to be the first tight end taken off the board, but I really like Michael Mayer. Mixon did not shoot someone wild wave. Someone was shot in front of his house. Different story. He was exonerated. I like Schoonmaker too. Yep, he's good in the late rounds. He's also a tight end, I believe, right? Yeah, from Michigan. Like that. Yeah, but you gotta, like, can anybody at any point ever be forgiven, right? That's the real thing. Can someone be forgiven? Is there a, like, how much time, what receipts? Second chances exist, guy. I'm not saying that he's earned it or not. I haven't followed Joe Mixon's career and his receipts long enough. But, like, you got to get a second chance eventually, right? I believe in second chances. Wild Wave, I want the defensive tackle from Pitt. Dude, I like the idea of taking him a lot. I kind of like the world in where we trade out of 13 to like 20, take Kalijah Cansey at 20, and then take Luke Whippler at 43 or 42, whichever pick we keep from the Aaron Rodgers trade. I love that idea, a lot. Now, by doing that, you sacrifice the offensive tackle position, and then maybe you go out and like bring back a George Fant or something like that. But I love the idea of that. Like, here's the thing. I want to walk away with the first 2 rounds with a center, a tackle, and a defensive tackle. No matter what. I want to walk away from the first round with 2 of those 3 positions. That being said, that means that the other position needs to be addressed in free agency. Now, I would more than likely probably just leave center to free agency and bring in a guy like Ben Jones because I think he can play still at a really high level. But like I so want to stop delaying the signing of and drafting of a wide receiver. Like, I'm so done with like delaying that. Like, just go get our guy. I want a new Nick Mangold. I want to get a center jersey again. Like, just stop. And so yeah. And, like, if we got a guy like Calais Campbell, even though I love this defensive tackle from Pitt, I feel cool going like, all right, cool. Take Broderick Jones or Anton Harrison or Darnell Wright or DeJuan Jones or whoever it is in the second that might be there, you know, and take JMS in the first or flip it, take the tackle in the first. Like, I'm totally cool with that. I just don't want to keep delaying taking the center. Just want the center. Just give me the center. Lit Tuesday, 100%. I agree with you. Come on, guys. There's no way you trust Jordan Whitehead and his angles as the last line of defense on a team trying to win a Super Bowl. Be serious. He wasn't that bad in coverage last year. Is he... Okay, here's a legitimate question. Ready? Here's a legitimate question. Is Jordan Whitehead at free safety better, worse, or the same as LaMarcus Joyner last year? Answer that question, worth the fight. Let me know. We need a free safety and a run-stuffing DT in the worst way. Rob V, I could not disagree with you more. I think safety is kind of cool. I think we're really good on safety. Me personally, I wouldn't start Jordan Whitehead. I think you cut Jordan Whitehead and probably take like a Ronnie Hickman in the 5th round. I like Tony Adams a lot, right? And I'm not saying we don't need a DT, Rob. I think we do need a DT. Just don't think we need a run-stuffing DT. This team doesn't utilize that position at all. What we need is linebackers who can take good angles. That's what we need. We need linebackers not named C.J. Mosley to take good angles. If Quincy Williams could learn how to read an angle, sign me up. Sign me up. But that's why I think we need a linebacker more than a run-stuffing DT. Remember, we want our defensive tackles to what's the word I'm looking for? To pass rush on every set. We very rarely set the edge when it comes to our front 4, and the expectation to stop the run comes from the back 7. That's why we get the corners involved, the linebackers involved, the safeties involved. Like, that's why Whitehead was such a problem last year, was because part of his job at strong safety was to be a net positive in the run game, and he just wasn't. Mohamed Abdel Hakim, thank you so much for hitting the subscribe button. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. But yeah, you want Poona Ford? Come on, man. I have no idea how old he is. How old is Poona Ford? Somebody look it up. He's old as crap. I'm trying to figure out which 2 jerseys to add to my collection to replace Berrios and Moore. Easy. Haven't even seen the chat yet. 2 guys. Easy breezy. Rodgers, Elijah Vera Tucker. Done. Boom. AVT Quinnen. That's a good one, too. There it is. Rodgers, I'm thinking wears 8 for some reason. Karma, Morgan, 8 open. Yeah. After he made those comments about like embracing the history of past teams, I don't think he's going to take 12. He wore 8 in college. Elijah Moore was traded so to free up 8. This is a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, by the way. We traded Elijah Moore to screw over the Green Bay Packers who wanted Elijah Moore and be like, not anymore, mofos. You keep wasting, we're going to trade every wide receiver until they're all gone. It's a joke, obviously, that... what's his name? The guy who does the Green Bay Packers content is hilarious. I love him so much. He made that joke, but I thought that was really funny. But yeah, I think he wears 8 too. I totally agree, Phil. I definitely was not talking about 30 snaps a game, maybe 10 or 5 for each of them when they know it's going to be a pass play, but they still want a physical team out there. 100%. Paul Lucas, thank you so much for hitting the subscribe button. You're awesome. Where's your Twitter info? In the description below. And if you... it's right there. Boom. If you pay attention to this scrolling bar on the bottom, it'll show up eventually. There you go. We desperately need a run-stopping DT, so it frees up Quinnen Williams to attack the QB. Here's the thing, Kev. Both DTs can just attack the QB. Like, that's the point. That's the point of this scheme. I understand that fundamentally and traditionally, when you play a front 4, you generally have a big space-eating defensive tackle like a Foley Fatukasi or the guy that we lost last year that I forgot his name. Like, that exists and that happens. This scheme doesn't utilize that type of defensive tackle. That's the point. We want all 4 of our guys to pin their ears back and to go after the edge rushers. Go after the quarterback. And the responsibility of stopping the run falls to the back 7. That's the thing. The reality is that, yes, a run-stopping DT would help free up Quinnen Williams, but that's not what this scheme does, right? This scheme relies on pass rushing on every single down and using the back 7 to stop the run. And it worked really well, except for we had 3 players that were liabilities last year. And then one of those players is more than likely is the only one that's going to be back because the other 2 guys are gone. LaMarcus Joyner and Jordan Whitehead were net negatives in the run game. They could not take proper angles and could not help stop the run. Well, the reality is Chuck Clark is here to probably take Jordan Whitehead's job. That's the reality of it. And then to answer the question that Rob V put in there, I think Tony Adams is going to be our starting free safety, personally. That's just me. I would love to bring a guy like Taylor Rapp in to be our starting free safety, and then you can cut Jordan Whitehead, and then you can have Taylor Rapp and Chuck Clark, and there's our safety room, and that's awesome. I just don't think Joe Douglas is going to do that. I think Tony Adams is going to be our starting free safety, but that's just me. That's why I'm not anti-free safety. That's just what I think is going to happen at free safety. So that's the thing, right? And then Quinnen Williams. And we know that we're bringing Quinnen Williams back, and he's probably going to be playing a significant role, and you hope that maybe he gets better at that. But if you only have one guy who might be kind of bad in the run game in Quinnen Williams, because we're getting better at strong safety and hopefully at free safety, I think your run game stopping is going to be a lot better. But that's just me. But again, that's evaluating how this team defends the run and stops and plays with our defense. That's the thing. I'm not saying that that's the standard with every team, because you're right. But, like, why would we remember when Foley walked? Why would we let Foley leave when he was one of the better run-stuffing defensive tackles in the league when we brought in Robert Saleh? It's because they don't use that kind of pass rusher at all. But there you go. His name's Calais Campbell. He knows his life will be easy as it's going to be the next year next to Quinnen Williams. That's why the Jets will sign him. I'll be shocked if Calais Campbell doesn't come. Me too. I really want Calais Campbell coming. I agree with Tigo. Chuck Clark can play box safety and is a better tackler and better coverage guy than Whitehead. I think we will see what the draft brings. If we get a free safety early, we'll cut Whitehead. Yeah, that's probably the plan. If not, we'll play Chuck Clark at free safety. Maybe he plays both well. So here's the thing. Statistically, Chuck Clark plays free safety and box safety relatively well. But if you're going to keep both of these guys, Hawk, I think you have to put Jordan Whitehead at free safety because statistically last year he was better in coverage than he was in the box. And that's if you're starting both guys. If you're not starting both guys and you're just starting Chuck Clark, then I would put Tony Adams at free safety and I would put Chuck Clark at strong safety. But again, I'm really high on Tony Adams. Last year in his limited play, I think he played well. But that's me. Harlan, false safeties are there as a second line of defense on the run, not the first responsibility. Have you, again, Rob, in regular football schemes, that's true, not in ours. Ours is the opposite. The trenches are created to create as much disruption as possible. The back 7 are responsible for stopping the run in our defensive scheme. That's the thing. While you're right that at every other defensive scheme, when you look at like regular 4-3s and Tampa 2s and 3-4s and covers, like and all of those things, that's how they play. This scheme doesn't play that way. Our scheme relies so heavily on the safeties and the linebackers to stop the run. You're both right. You're just talking about different things. Exactly worth the fight. That's why we rotate the defensive line so often. We rotate them so often because we're asking them to play with their hair on fire every single play. Every play, pin your ears back, get to the passer as quickly as possible. Now, and exactly right. What are your thoughts on Jordan Love starting this season? Good, mid, or flop? I have no idea. This is one of the stories that I'm going to be most interested in watching is the Jordan Love saga. Because, like, dude, statistically speaking, The chances of Green Bay going from a Hall of Fame quarterback to a Hall of Fame quarterback to another Hall of Fame quarterback have to be close to zero, right? But what if? What if Jordan Love is the next Aaron Rodgers / Brett Favre? It's crazy, man. I would agree with you about free safety. If Joe Douglas was going to sign somebody, it would have been C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Disagree, because that was a fair deal, unless he drafts a rookie and he takes the job during camp. Totally agree with the top part. Totally disagree with the second part. I don't think C.J. Gardner-Johnson was ever on the Jets' radar. He is a massive liability, and statistically speaking, was marginally better than Jordan Whitehead. He is not an upgrade at the safety position at all. The only team that offered him a long-term contract was the Philadelphia Eagles, and he had to go get a one-year prove-it deal because he's a massive liability. C.J. Gardner-Johnson needs to prove that he can tackle, that he can cover well, because last year I think he benefited from being on the best defense in the NFL, according to DVOA. And this is not me saying that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is a bad player. No, but what I'm saying is he got overhyped because he was on the Phillies roster. If he was as good as every other team really, as Jets fans really looked at him, why did he only get a one-year prove-it deal with the Detroit Lions? Why didn't a single team out there offer him a multi-year deal? I'm just saying, like when we look at all that stuff, he benefited from being on that team just as good. So, yeah. Again, not in most schemes. Oh, nope, already read that one. Yes, but that was because our line... Okay, but Kev, here's the problem that you're not realizing with our scheme. Teams started running up the middle because they knew that Quincy Williams, LaMarcus Joyner, and Jordan Whitehead weren't going to tackle them. If you could get to the second level and stop the only threat at stopping the run in our scheme, which was C.J. Mosley, then it ended. Like, that's it, because Quincy's angles were bad, LaMarcus Joyner was atrocious, and Jordan Whitehead just threw shoulders. He never tackled anybody. That's the thing. We're getting better at safety, at strong safety with Chuck Clark. He's like a 70, 89% tackler in the NFL at the next level. That's why we traded for him. Like, don't sell that short. Again, it's about our scheme, not about how you traditionally play the trenches. We don't play traditionally on the defensive side of the ball at all. Like, at all. That's why we don't have a big run-stuffing defensive tackle. Like, at all. So the expectation that we're going to have a big run-stuffing defensive tackle is a fallacy that it's only going to set you up for disappointment every year when we don't take one. If Jordan Love turns out to be a top 12 quarterback, more teams are going to start letting their quarterbacks sit for 2 years like they used to, because it'll have worked in Green Bay twice in a row. For real. We're talking about different things. I'm saying C.J. Gardner-Johnson at free safety, because that's what he is, and Jordan Whitehead at strong safety are marginally, they're like almost the same player. Different safety roles. So what I'm saying is it's not an upgrade. I'm not comparing apples to apples. We're comparing apples to oranges here because they're different safety positions worth the fight. But what I'm saying is, yes, he would have caught those interceptions, but Jordan Whitehead was in the right position, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. C.J. Gardner-Johnson would have been like probably an upgrade to LaMarcus Joyner, but like not worth that money, in my opinion. There are other guys that I think are better than, like, I would give Taylor Rapp $8 million before I gave C.J. Gardner-Johnson $8 million. Because I think Taylor Rapp probably also would have covered better, probably would have tackled better, like statistically would have done all those things better, and he's not the liability that C.J. Gardner-Johnson is. That's the thing. C.J. Gardner-Johnson is a risky player. He plays very riskily, and I don't want risky players back there. I want safe guys. So that's me. I'm not putting all the blame on Mosley or Whitehead or anything like that. C.J. Mosley was the only good tackler outside of our corners, because they were great, in the secondary. And so, but what I'm saying is, like last year we had two great defensive tackles. Quinnen Williams, I think, ranked as like the third best defensive tackle in football, and then Sheldon Rankins ranked as like the top 15. We had an insanely good defensive line. It's the scheme. It's not the players, like in the sense of the trenches. It's the scheme. And so the players that are responsible for stopping the run in our scheme are the linebackers and the safeties. And those were by far our worst players, not named CJ Mosley. So that's, again, is where it comes from. Tigo, if what you're saying is true, then any run would get 3 to 5 yards a carry on us because they don't have to worry about the first line of defense. No, because our defensive guys, like our defensive line is good enough like at reaching an arm out and stopping that. And the other thing is the responsibilities of our linebackers. Like our linebackers very rarely cover. That's the other thing that you have to take into consideration. Our linebackers don't cover very often, like at all. We play a ton of nickel coverage so that we can bring in the third cornerback in Michael Carter or Will Parks. Remember, if it was a third wide receiver on the field, we would bring in Michael Carter. Michael Carter was going to cover the slot receiver. If it was a 2 tight end set, Will Parks would come in and he would be responsible for the second tight end. So what would happen is you can have your 2 linebackers really kind of play closer to the line to help compensate for the fact that our line is busting up the middle. And that's the thing. Remember that we were kind of like, it's about giving up we would rather give up the short yardage than the long one. And so, yeah, statistically, our defenses are going to give up 2-yard, 3-yard runs all the time. But that's a difficult way for an offense to keep playing. That's the point. Like, again, that's the weakness of this team. We are going to be really good in coverage and really good in the pass and weak in the run stopping. But because of the way that the league is going, it kind of benefits us. If we, like, here's what we really need to hope is that, like, Miami doesn't know how to run the ball. They keep throwing the ball, and they're going to keep throwing the ball because they have 2 top 10 wide receivers. So there's a reality. Benefits us there. The Buffalo Bills haven't figured out running back, and we really need to hope that they still don't figure out running back. They can't trade for Derrick Henry. They can't trade for Austin Eckler. They can't go get Bijan Robinson. We need to hope that they're running it back with, you know what? They got to go sign Sexy Rexy and run that back with the fake Cook brother and then Sexy Rexy as your 1-2 because then the run game's not really a threat. And then the Patriots are the Patriots. They're probably going to try to run the ball effectively, but like you have Mac Jones at quarterback, so you can just stack the box every time. So there's that. If we get a team in our division who can run the ball effectively, yeah, like we're going to get run on a lot. But that's not where our defense shines. Like statistically or like analytically, we're never going to be one of the best run stopping teams in the NFL. We're probably going to give up an average of like you said, 3 to 5 yards every carry when it comes to that. Now, that's not sustainable right now, and our average is probably around that right now. And again, it's because our linebackers and safeties weren't really helping the cause. If we look at the San Francisco 49ers team that our scheme and our system is based off of, all of those safeties and linebackers are what? Fantastic tacklers. They struggle in coverage and all of those things, but they are fantastic tacklers. That's it, right? Exactly. Defensive line for the New York Jets and the San Francisco 49ers and now the Houston Texans just cause havoc in the backfield. Get to the backfield as quickly as possible. Teams run the ball all over us all the time. Absolutely. And it's because our linebackers, we were weak up the middle. But that's the thing. Where on the defense do we need the most help? Linebacker and safety, right? That's where we were the weakest. And it's because those guys couldn't tackle. Come on. Somebody mentioned it earlier. Oranges are better than apples. Nah, dude. Apples over oranges. Who said that? Who am I fighting with? Oh, good night, Phil. Didn't see you were coming. Didn't see you were leaving. For sure, apples. What? Vervain? Kev? Are we fighting? I love apples. Apples are my favorite fruit. Oh, man. Yeah, again, I would much rather be you know what, let's just stop everything all of the time kind of a defense, but it is a bend, don't break kind of defense. And while I'm not the best fan of it, remember that last year we gave up, I think it was 18 points on average. It was like the third lowest points on average by a defense. According to DVOA, we were the number 2 defense in the NFL last year, and that's with teams running the ball however they wanted up against us. I think we're only going to get better like when it comes to the safety position. And so, yeah. I agree because I think we're going to get better in the linebacker room. Can't believe Kev. I love fighting with you, Kev, and arguing. Not fighting. We don't fight. Debating and having these conversations. But for you to say something, oranges over apples? How dare you? I'm not a peanut butter guy, but there you go, Rob. I don't like sweets very often. I don't like sweets. Friendly bet here, all right? What's the friendly bet, bud? I'm about it. Depends on how friendly you're talking about, okay? Remember that I am unemployed and a full-time student and a full-time stay-at-home dad. I don't disagree with this. Yeah, this is happening. 100%. Can I take that part of the bet? I think we take a defensive tackle in the top 4 picks. I agree. Either in the second or the third. Totally on board. I think it happens. My guess is in the third or the fourth, to be specific. Like, I think we're taking a defensive tackle in the third or the fourth round. Okay, Rob V, let's turn our friendly bet into a more of a friendly bet. Let's say we don't take a tackle in round 1 or 2, right? A defensive tackle in round 1 or 2. Let's say that that's mainly being held for safety, offensive tackle, and center. I'll let you pick. Do we take a defensive tackle in round 3 or round 4? I'll make that one. Friendly bet with you. I know. I think we're going to take, but I agree. I think we're going to take a defensive tackle in the first 4 picks. Like, I don't disagree with you. We can't make a bet if we both agree. Okay, Rob, I think we'll get it back. Here's what I think is going to happen. We're going to trade 43 for Aaron Rodgers. And then we're going to trade back from 13 to get a 3rd round pick this year and to pick at 20s. And then we're going to take a center and a tackle in rounds 1 and 2. So that leaves defensive tackle in round 3 and round 4. So if you want, you know what? I'll take that bet. I'll take that we're taking a defensive tackle in round 3 with the pick that we reaccumulate from an Aaron Rodgers trade. Bet? If we pick Nolan Smith at 13, you shave your head. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Bet. If not, though, what do I get, Kev? Okay, then, Rob, I'll take the 4th round. I'll take round 4. You can take round 3. I'll take round 4. Kev, what do I get if we don't take Nolan Smith? I'm risking my whole head here, right? Now, I'm not asking for a done here, right? I'm not asking for a donation, none of that stuff, because that wouldn't be fair. It's not fair, Kev, right? But what do I get? What do I get, Kev? To bet. Someone's got to lose and someone's got to win. Jalen Carter slides. Yeah, I agree, but I don't think he makes it past Detroit at 6. I don't think he makes it past Seattle at 5. I think Seattle takes him at 5. Don't like Whippler at center. He's an undersized player that can only play center. Stromberg plays center or any of the guard positions. I don't mind Whippler. I like Whippler a lot. I don't care about having flexibility of our center to play guard. I want our center to play center. But I get your concern here. But Stromberg's not going to get taken until way late, in my opinion. So, like, if we're not taking Whippler, we're probably taking a Villa. We're probably taking Tippmann. We're probably taking one of those guys. Love it. There you go, Rob V. Love it. Kev, you should be liking anyway. Come on. Yeah, but, like, you're not wrong. But, like, again, I'm going to, like, if I think what's going to happen real 84 at 13, it's going to be we trade back. And that's a much more likely scenario. That's like why my punishment is so severe, because, like, it's a 1 in a not a million, but it's like a 1 in 500 and something chance that he gets taken, right? That one that he's available there at 13 and then he gets taken at 13, even though we just took 2 defense. Like, defensive edge guys in last year's class, and we probably are going to keep Carl Lawson, blah, 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 blah. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's a lot there. How about this? All right, Kev, I've got it. If he isn't taken, you get like your girl or your mom or your dad to subscribe to the channel. You got to add one subscriber. You can even make a new account and subscribe. You got to add one subscriber. Deal? Because that's not hard. You probably got a second email somewhere. I feel like that's fair. If he gets taken, I shave my head. If not, you just create a new email and subscribe. You never have to use that email ever again. I don't even need the one subscriber. Like, it's going to, like, I would have made this bet and been like, oh, please, please. Like, last year's draft, like, one subscriber isn't going to change everything. But, like, I don't know. You tell me. Right? I think so too, Real 84. Right? I think so. Hold what? Oh, man. Boom. Love it. There it is. Okay, guys, let's end the stream. Let's do story time with Tigo. Bet. There you go, Rob. Rob, like, you're here all the time. I'll just give you the wrench. I feel like you kind of earned the wrench, though. Like, there you go. All right, Nathan, if you're out, have a good night. Okay, story time with Tigo to end the stream. So, okay, I got a great story. How I almost died. Okay, when I was in my youth, because I failed to realize that this creek that me and my buddy were swimming across had a gator in it. All right. Story time with Tigo. I'm going to give you guys stories. I got to write a list of all of my stories. I got a lot of crazy ones. Maybe tell some Navy stories. Figure out some stuff. Okay. Here it is. All right. Cool. Right? Let's start. When I was in my youth, Blockbuster still existed. Right? And so where I lived, I used to, you know what? I can probably just pull it up. I don't live anywhere near there anymore. I could probably just pull up a map and show you guys. It's hilarious. Haha. Where is it? Okay, cool. Brace your eyes. Okay. So, I used to live right in this house. This used to be my house. It wasn't this color, but this used to be my house. All of this back here is a forest, right? All of this stuff right in here is a massive forest. Now, right in here, now they show it over here, but it extends all the way out to here, is this body of water that used to happen, right? Cool. So you guys now have a map. There's a McDonald's here, and then this charter school, no, right here. This used to be right over here where this Publix is, used to be a Blockbuster. Now that you have the visual, no, where am I? There I am, right? No, that's where we're supposed to be. Right in that area, no, this is not a Navy story, this is a childhood story, right? Right in that area is where we used to live. So me and my buddies, we were dumb, and we would play like paintball and airsoft and all those things in that forest. But whenever we were hungry, we would cross the entire forest, like that little wooded area. It wasn't like a forest. We would swim across that little channel, and then we would go to McDonald's, right? It's Florida. You would get dry by the time you made it there. It was 101-degree summers. We were 13, 15, absolutely stupid young men, idiots. But we did this on a regular and consistent basis. And so you would swim across, right? You would take your shoes, you would throw them all the way across, right? Take your shirt off, throw it all the way across. and you could swim across that and you could get to McDonald's. And then they hated us coming in like wet, so they would make us go through the drive-thru. So you would see like 6 youths walking the drive-thru. It was hilarious, but that's what we would do. And here's the kicker, right? And this is why you got to pay attention to why we're idiots, right? Is you would do that. We would buy like, because remember, this is back when like the McDouble was $1 and now it's like $3, which is insane. But like you would spend like $5 and you would get like 5 McDoubles. And because we were 13, 14-year-olds with metabolism of champions, you would pound 3 of them. Like you just inhale them. So you would have like 1 or 2 left over. There was also a Taco Bell in that plaza. It's not there anymore. So sometimes you would hit up McDonald's and then you would also hit up the Taco Bell. And like we would eat like while we're walking, and then what you would do is you would hold your bag over your head and like swim across that little creek, right? And there you go. And so let that sink in what we're doing, okay? We're agitating a relatively medium-sized body of water in Florida, carrying bags of food that contain meat in them over our heads. I want you to let that sink in. What was in that body of water? Yeah, it was a gator. It was a gator in that body of water. We had no idea. And it was hilarious because we had swam across and back tons of times, not knowing that there was anything in that thing. And we were going, like one last time, we were swimming across to go to the McDonald's. And my buddy is in the water. And off like 30-ish, 40-ish feet. And like, again, it wasn't that like long, like we're super worried. No. You swam across that thing in like 3 or 4 seconds. But he looks across. I had gotten through. My best friend had gotten through. His like neighbor gotten through. Like it was the last one. He was the last one to go. And he looks off to the side and sees what we thought was just a log coming at him. Kind of, not quickly, but kind of quickly. And then he freaks out and he gets across and he grabs all his stuff and runs and he like tackles us onto the concrete. I remember he like scraped my elbow. I was mad at him. And I was like, dude, what are you doing? And then he goes, dude, that's a gator. I was like, no, it's not. And so we threw something at what we thought was, no, it was a freaking gator. We had to call our friend's mom to come pick us up because we were shook. We were shooketh. Told her to bring pool towels and to come pick us up. And that was the last time we ever crossed that. At that point in time, we took the long way around. We rode our bikes. We didn't stop making that thing. But yeah, that was the story of the time. Well, one of the times I almost died because, as Kev said, youth is wasted on the young. Absolutely. And, yeah, there's that story. There you go. Real 48, born and raised in Buffalo, traveling to Florida often for work. I would walk the corporate offices and all the ponds looking for gators. Always wanted to see one, but not like that. Oh, there is a little like lake reservoir behind our house. There is a little baby gator in there. We had to call animal services or animal control or whatever it's called to come get this little baby gator. It's tiny, but so is this little reservoir. We can't let him stay in there. So yeah, called animal services. They're going to be, I think, over next week to relocate the gator to a bigger pond. But yeah, there's that. Oh, to answer real quick. Where is it? Oh, here it is. Ever since that day, I have been terrified of gators. And, okay, what you guys are about to see is baby Tigo, okay? But when me and my wife had just gotten married, oh, my God, I don't even want to show you guys. This is so embarrassing. I have a goatee, oh, my God. But you'll see I am not holding this thing because I'm terrified now. But there is baby Tigo and my wife just married, and there she is holding a gator. And there's ugly me at like 20 years old. And there you go. There's that. But all right. Story time with Tigo. Guys, in the comment section of this video. If you're watching this on when it's already uploaded, thank you for watching this and spending 2.5 hours with us. If you guys are here now, thank you so much for hanging out. But when the video is over, if you want to do me a huge favor, put in the comment section what kind of stories you want to hear. I've got a ton of them. I've got crazy Navy stories. I've got crazy youth stories. I've got crazy adult stories. Let me know some topics and things that you want to hear about, and I'll see if I can come up with a story about it so that we can end every live stream with story time with Tigo, because I've lived a pretty interesting life. There you go. Let's say bye to some people. You should look up diving with the Gators in Everglades. Nope, won't do it. Insane. That sounds like a horrible idea, Harrison. Would not, Well, nope. Jesse P., member of the channel, thank you so much. Seeing them close was in Miyaka State Park fishing and gators were circling my dog. Ooh, that's no fun. Usually gators are pretty timid. I've swam in water where they are, but never was too comfortable with it. Like, again, I have two, and like, again, I was like 13, and the gator wasn't coming at us. It was kind of just floating there, but it was still close enough to me think like, dude, if that guy wanted to grab that kid's leg and just barrel roll, like he would have lost his leg. I do have a whitewater rafting story. That's a good one. Not doing that, Barney. Come on. Navy story. What kind of Navy stories? Basic training stories? Marine training stories? Come on. I almost drowned once. Me too. I got hooked. My foot got hooked on a boat. Nope, never mind. Not telling the story. Gotta save it. All/fail stories are fun. 100%. Lived in Brevard County for years. That's one. Tell one more. Okay, here's a whitewater rafting story, and then I'm done. Okay? Okay, it wasn't necessarily whitewater rafting in the way that you think of like the super extreme version, but when we went, it was still whitewater enough that like you had to wear a helmet and you had to like, obviously you would have to wear a life vest no matter what, but it was still enough of a whitewater rafting like to be like concerned, and there was a class and all of those things. So we go on these like on those inflatable boats, right? This was right like when I got like out, I don't remember what it was, but like I don't know how to even describe it, but like you know what I'm talking about, like those inflatable boats that you see all the time. It's not a kayak, right? But it's one of those things. So you're not really like strapped in to anything. Hey, Ron Weiss, thank you so much. Thank you. I didn't do it for anything other than my love of this country, and I don't do it for the appreciation or anything like that, but I appreciate you for appreciating me. Thank you so much. I love my time in the Navy. I would not have left if it was up to me. That sucks, Ronald. I am sorry to hear that. All right, back to a whitewater rafting story. So we're going through this, like, this thing, right? This class, and as a young man, I was naive and thought I was indestructible, so I thought, nah, nothing's gonna happen. So we're going down, like, the first part of this, like, river in, like, northern Florida, and it was pretty okay, and I was like, this is it, like, and I failed the part that said, like, as you go down the river, it gets progressively worse. So I failed to listen to that part because I wasn't paying attention. And so we're going whatever, and we go down the first one, and it's like what, like nothing. And we go down the second part, and I was like, this is it. So we go down this third part, and it's a little bit worse, but I was like, I'm going to try to stand on this third part. And I do, and I'm rocking it. Balance of a champion. No one informed me, or they did, and I wasn't listening, that the gap between the third section and the fourth section is massive. The fourth section is serious, like hardcore, like, hey, you got to strap in, pay attention to what you're doing, because if not, like, you can fall over and you can die. So I'm being an idiot again, and so we're going, and I stand right when I see, and it just drops. Like, it's like a 2-foot drop, and I wasn't ready for it because I wasn't looking ahead. And so the boat is no longer under me. Like, imagine, like, you know those Wile E. Coyote when he's chasing the Roadrunner and he's running and it's just like runs off the cliff and he's just hanging there? That's what it felt like. And then out of nowhere, I get yanked down. My foot had gotten caught on one of the braids on the side. This is the only reason I survived was because of this, probably. And so I get yanked down, hit the boat hard, and then fall over to the other side and essentially get ripped onto the water like a belly flop. And the boat is going. And all I hear, I'm out, KO'd. Like, not actually, but like, I'm like, okay, death take me. I was an idiot. I just didn't have the strength. I didn't have any breath. I thought, this is it. This is where I die. And out of nowhere, I just feel this hand grabbing me here. And for a second there, as a totally straight heterosexual man, for a second there, I was gay. Because this big dude, like I'm talking 6'2", 215, is standing in the raft while it's doing, and he grabs me by the back of the vest, pulls me up, throws me down, sits down, and continues rafting. And I was just like, I think I have to marry him now. Like, I think that's how it works. Am I his slave? Like, how does? And that was that. And then they pulled off to the side, and I got kicked off. And I had to walk back. It was like a 2-mile hike, turn in my stuff, and I never got my money back. And had to wait there for like 45 minutes to an hour while my friends and stuff went down and then hopped on the van and came back up. And there you go there. There's that. My dad was a Marine. Thanks. Love the late shows. Always, man. Always. Fridays, 9:30. We're always live. Fridays. And there's that. Pedro, U.S. Marine vet here, anchors away sailor. Absolutely, man. I spent a lot of my time with the Marines. I was a hospital corpsman. I was doc and doing all that stuff. And yeah, there's that. Yeah, I don't like, again, I still love doing that stuff and all of that, and that's great. But that was a fun moment for me. But yeah, I never touched a boat once. Not once. I was in the Navy. I was never on a boat. That is cool. Submarine officer. My brother-in-law almost went to be a submarine officer. They tried to offer me like $200,000 to go be a doctor on a not a doctor, right? But like a medical guy on a submarine. I said, no way. Not doing that. Not going to be put in a tube in the bottom of the ocean. Couldn't do it. Like I said, I joined the Navy to be with the Marines, not to be on a boat, which is funny. Alrighty, guys. It is like past midnight. I have to wake up to a screaming kid in like 6 hours. Thank you so much for all of you for stopping by. Thank you for joining the Tigo Navy and being a part of the channel and a member of the channel. Jesse P. Remember, once we hit 15, I'll be giving away to one of those 15 subscribers a Talking Jets with Tigo t-shirt. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for talking free agents, talking football, talking Jets. I love it. Even when we disagree. Guys, have a good night. Hit the like button on the way out. Stay tuned. We've got a lot of really cool and interesting things coming to the channel. A lot of new changes that you're going to be having. Let's hope that this is the week we get Aaron Rodgers. I think so. Expect news on Monday. That's my guess. And last but not least, go Jets.